Chapter 2459. Are you from the Divine Spirit clan? Lin Tian asked as he looked at the group of cultivators who were all dressed in the same way. He had already confirmed the identity of this group of people in his heart, but he still asked in such a manner. You're so undisciplined and disrespectful to the gods. There were about 33 cultivators dressed in similar clothes, and one of them said coldly. The man with double pupils attacked again. His eyes flickered, and the space instantly distorted as killing intent burst out. In the blink of an eye, Lin Tian was shrouded in killing intent. The killing intent was so terrifying that even Lin Tian felt threatened. He didn't dare to be careless, and immediately took out the law of all beginnings to meet the attack. The law of all beginnings turned everything into nothingness and annihilated the man's killing intent, causing it to disappear in an instant. At the same time, from the words of the man who spoke earlier, he was sure that these people were indeed the so-called divine spirits from the 10 divine realms. Dozens of divine spirit clans experts looked at Lin Tian, and their eyes flickered slightly. Especially the dual-pupil divine spirit clan's expert, his eyes were intertwined with a chilling light. Lin Tian actually blocked his attack twice. Resisting a divine spirit, unforgivable! His voice was cold, and he moved as soon as he finished speaking. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye, and slapped him. Lin Tian snorted and didn't dodge. He met the attack head-on. Divine spirits should act like divine spirits. You're not even comparable to the lowest level of demons, and you call yourself divine spirits? How disgusting! He didn't hold back at all. As soon as he finished speaking, he swung the reincarnation fist, and the unparalleled power of his fist surged. In the blink of an eye, the fist and the palm collided. There was a rumble, and the sky was filled with holy light, and the space cracked. After a while, the two of them retreated at the same time. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes. He was a reincarnated being, and 8 layers of the seals on his soul root had been unsealed. His current physical body was already terrifyingly strong, and his pure physical strength was many times stronger than that of a primordial realm cultivator. However, in a physical battle, this cultivator from the Divine Spirit clan, who was at the same cultivation level as him, was actually not any weaker than him. This is the so-called divine body? His heart sank as he recalled what the goddess had told him. The gods in the 10 divine regions were all born from nature, and all of them had divine bodies. Their physiques were extremely strong, and they surpassed all other physiques except for the reincarnation physique. He looked at the other party and couldn't help but feel a sense of shock in his heart. Purely in terms of the strength of the flesh, the divine body of this lineage wasn't inferior to his reincarnation physique at all. While he was shocked, the 33 cultivators of the Divine Spirit clan were even more shocked. Their pupils shrank. He's just an ordinary species. Despite being at the same level of cultivation, his physique is actually able to contend against us. This shouldn't be possible, one of them said in a deep voice. They were born from nature, and they had divine bodies. Their strength was boundless, and their saint energy was endless. Now, in terms of the strength of their flesh, Lin Tian was actually not inferior to them, who were in the 8-dimensional realm. He was actually evenly matched with the dual-pupiled cultivator. The dual-pupiled cultivator's expression became even colder. With a boom, a majestic saint energy appeared outside his body. With a rumbling sound, a storm of saint energy swept across the area. It was extremely powerful. Kill! A cold word came out from his mouth. Behind him, tens of thousands of divine elephants appeared. They took a step forward and pressed down on Lin Tian in a grandiose manner. This kind of power was extremely shocking, and it shook the heavens and the earth, causing waves of storms to sweep out. Lin Tian's heart trembled again. How could this be the aura of an 8-dimensional realm cultivator? Even an ordinary primordial realm cultivator would find it difficult to have this kind of power. This made him finally understand what the goddess had said to him in the 8-dimensional realm. This lineage was indeed qualified to be called a divine spirit. They were really strong. Any one of them seemed to have the ability to fight across realms. Their saint energy and saint might were incomparably terrifying. However, after feeling this, although he was shocked, he did not feel the slightest bit of fear. Clang! The reincarnation sword technique was used immediately, and the sword light of reincarnation swept out. Then, 8 types of laws of the 8 dimensions were used together and pressed down on the dual-pupiled cultivator. In the blink of an eye, the two collided again. Boom! 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 Astonishing saint energy surged. In the blink of an eye, the two fought fiercely. A full 2 hours passed. After 2 hours, a muffled bang was heard. The single-pupiled cultivator of the Divine Spirit clan was sent flying in a sorry state. Blood splattered all over the void. Ching! In this place, the other 32 people of the Divine Spirit clan had already killed all the 9-dimensional cultivators in this area. When they saw Lin Tian fighting with the dual-pupiled cultivator of their lineage, they were all moved. In a battle of the same level, the cultivator of their clan was actually at a disadvantage. He was directly sent flying by Lin Tian. On the other side, Lin Tian's eyes were intertwined with a profound light. Very terrifying! This was his evaluation of the dual-pupiled cultivator of the Divine Spirit clan. It was also his evaluation of the Divine Spirit clan. Now that he had unsealed the 8 seals on his soul root and possessed the reincarnation body, even an ordinary primordial realm cultivator would not be able to withstand a single blow from him if he were to fight seriously under normal circumstances. However, this dual-pupiled cultivator of the Divine Spirit clan actually fought fiercely with him for 2 hours before he was injured. This was really terrifying. Mortal. The dual-pupiled cultivator was sent flying. He stabilized his body in the distance and looked at Lin Tian again with a cold light in his eyes. He was a divine spirit, a high and mighty divine spirit who had descended from the 10th dimension. Now, he was actually injured by a human from the lower realm of the same realm. To him, this was undoubtedly a great humiliation. Disrespectful to the gods. Resisting the gods. Insulting the gods. Hurting the gods. No matter which one it is, I will make you die 10,000 times. As soon as he finished speaking, a cross-shaped light seal appeared above his head with a bang. It was intertwined with an extremely terrifying aura of destruction. Facing this cross-shaped light seal, Lin Tian could naturally feel the terror of this light seal, but he was not afraid at all. If you are gods, then I am the Divine King. Whether it is you or the others of your clan, all of you will submit to me, he said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, the aura of his body also rose with a bang. It was like a volcano that was about to erupt. At the same time, as soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the 33 people of the Divine Spirit clan changed, and their eyes became extremely cold. You are courting death. Extremely terrifying murderous intent burst out from these people's eyes in an instant, as if Lin Tian had touched some taboo of their faith. You dare to call yourself the Divine King? Lowly mortal. The dual-pupiled cultivator of the Divine Spirit clan had an extremely cold gaze, and his aura became even more terrifying. With the light of the gods, I will cleanse your filthy soul. Die, disappear forever. With a bang, the cross-shaped light was resplendent, and it was as if the sky was pressing down on Lin Tian. The one who will disappear is you, Lin Tianling said coldly. All the dimensional laws except for the reincarnation cycle were activated together, forming the dimensional killing sword, and fiercely slashed at the opponent. With a clang, the power of the dimensional killing sword instantly annihilated the cross-shaped light seal and landed on the body of the Divine Spirit clan cultivator who attacked. Poof! Blood splattered. The dual-pupiled cultivator of the Divine Spirit clan who attacked was instantly shattered, and his divine spirit soul also disappeared. So what if you are born from heaven and earth? So what if you have a divine body? Divine spirit? You will still have blood and flesh, and you will still die. His gaze fell on the other 32 cultivators of the Divine Spirit clan as he said coldly. These cultivators of the Divine Spirit clan were very strong. They all had divine bodies and could kill enemies who were one realm higher. However, if they were in the same realm, they would still be stronger. If they were in the same realm, they would be able to suppress these cultivators of the Divine Spirit clan. The 32 cultivators of the Divine Spirit clan were all shocked. How can this be? They were divine spirits who had stepped into this world from the 10 divine realms. Among those in the same realm, except for a few extremely terrifying people in this world, no one could fight against the cultivators of their clan in the same realm. Those few people had all walked to an extremely deep level of the supreme level of heaven and earth, which was extremely frightening. But now, this human, who was only at the early stage of the 8th dimensional realm, had actually managed to kill a member of the Divine Spirit clan. Damned mortal race! Kill! The 32 cultivators' voices were cold, and they attacked together. Lin Tianling's eyes were cold. All the dimensional laws except the reincarnation cycle formed the dimensional divine sword, and sword light filled the sky. Clang! 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 The sound of the sword was ear-piercing, and the saintly aura was vast and mighty. He fought 32 divine spirits at the same time with his own strength. Blood splattered from time to time. The void was constantly crumbling. The ground was destroyed from time to time. In the blink of an eye, 4 hours had passed. As he mercilessly attacked, only one divine spirit remained among the dozens. The divine spirit's blood dyed the ground red. You! The last divine spirit trembled slightly as he looked at Lin Tianling. The arrogance and indifference from before had disappeared, and was replaced by fear. In the same realm, 32 of the 33 divine spirits of the Divine Spirit clan had been killed by a human alone. He retreated and then turned into a beam of light to escape. Even divine spirits can escape? Lin Tianling laughed. He used the reincarnation steps and caught up with the other divine spirit in a single step. The 4-symbol seal was activated. In an instant, the surrounding space froze, and he directly suppressed the last god in this place. Let me go! The divine spirit struggled with all his might, trying to break free, but it was useless. He immediately shouted at Lin Tianling. Lin Tianling raised his hand and slapped the divine spirit's cheek. He said coldly, "A prisoner should have the awareness of a prisoner." The divine spirit was stunned at first, and then he became furious. His eyes were filled with terrifying killing intent. You dare to slap me? He was a divine spirit, but he was slapped by a human cultivator. This made him feel worse than directly killing him. So what if I slap you? Get up and bite me? Chapter 2460. You! Looking at Lin Tian, the suppressed god's mouth and nose were bleeding, and his eyes were filled with anger. A mere mortal actually dared to do this to him, slapping him 100 times in a row. Looking at Lin Tian, his eyes became ferocious, as if he wanted to swallow Lin Tian alive. Lin Tianling snorted. The 4-symbol seal became even stronger, restricting the god even more tightly. Then, he directly searched the god's sea of consciousness. Very quickly, a quarter of an hour passed. His divine sense retreated from the god's sea of consciousness, and he killed the god with a slash of his sword. Initial god, quasi-god, god-disciple, god-envoy, god-commander, god-monarch, ancestor god, he muttered to himself, a faint light appearing in his eyes. He'd found a lot of information from the Divine Spirit's consciousness. The Divine Spirit clan had the surname, 10 Directions, in the 10 Directions divine realm. The first divine spirit he'd killed was called 10 Directions Jing. In terms of strength, the gods of this race below the primordial realm were called initial gods, quasi-gods at the primordial realm, god-disciples at the creation realm, god-envoys at the tribulation realm, god-commanders at the 9th dimension, god-monarchs at the supreme realm, and god-monarchs at the heaven and earth realm, god-monarchs. As for those who could suppress all the supreme beings of this race, they were called ancestor gods, and were called the ancestor gods of the 10 Directions. They were the strongest god race. After that, there was another point that moved him the most. Above the ancestor god, there was another title, Divine King. However, since ancient times, no divine king had ever been born. This was a will that all divine spirits possessed when they were first born, as long as someone could fuse with and control the heart of the 10th dimension and obtain its recognition, they would be the true king of the 10 divine regions, the strongest and most supreme divine king of the 10 directions. 10 directions ancient star, 10th heaven, 10 directions divine king. His gaze couldn't help but fluctuate. After fusing with the heart of the 10th dimension and obtaining its recognition, one would be recognized as the true king of the 10 directions divine domain? Did Master try fusing with the heart of the 10th dimension after finding it? He muttered to himself. From what he learned from that God's knowledge when the 10th dimensional heart was still in the 10 divine realms, the ancestral god of 10 directions and some other gods had attempted to fuse with it countless times. However, all of their attempts ended in failure, and many of them even suffered from backlash. He didn't know if an old drunkard had attempted to fuse with the 10th dimensional heart after discovering it in the 4-dimensional world. He believed that an old drunkard knew that fusing with the 10th dimensional heart would allow one to become the true king of the 10 divine realms. They should have tried or probed it, but failed. An old drunkard once said that the purpose of going to the 4-dimensional world to find the 10th dimensional heart was the same as his parents sending him to the 4-dimensional world to control the complete reincarnation cycle. It was also to stop the chaos caused by the gods. From the looks of it, an old drunkard must have tried to fuse with the 10th dimensional heart after finding it, but failed. He also knew that fusing with the 10th dimensional heart with his main body wouldn't succeed, so when he left, he only set up layers of arrangements in the 10 directions ancient star. As for why an old drunkard didn't tell the gods the exact location of the 10th dimensional heart in order to stop this war that had lasted for eons, he could roughly deduce the reason. Judging from the attitude of those gods, he believed that even if an old drunkard told them the exact location of the 10th dimensional heart, they would never give up on fighting and would still want to fuse the lower heaven and earth into the 10 directions divine realms to strengthen it. As such, telling them the location of the 10th dimensional heart would only be harmful and meaningless. He stood there with a faint light flickering in his eyes. After pausing for a moment, he took a deep breath and directly left this place. He spread out his majestic divine consciousness and traveled through the 9th dimension, carefully concealing his aura as he searched for his mother and mistress. The 9th dimension was now a super battlefield. At this moment, he had to be careful in this heaven and earth. If he encountered a creation realm god disciple of the god's spirit clan, he would be in great danger. Even if he had the help of the 3rd dimension heaven, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. This was because everyone in this clan had a divine body and had the ability to fight across realms. A creation realm god disciple was basically equivalent to an ordinary tribulation realm expert. He definitely wouldn't be able to withstand a tribulation realm expert. His speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he had traveled a great distance in this heaven and earth. Suddenly, he felt a gust of devil chi. Moreover, this devil chi was very familiar. Devil ancestor! His heart skipped a beat. When he was in the 8th dimension, he was almost devoured by the devil ancestor. Naturally, he was very familiar with the other party's aura. The devil chi here was very faint, and it extended into a distant dark mountain. He frowned and pondered. After a pause, he walked toward the dark mountain in front of him. Soon, he concealed his aura with all his might and hid himself underground with the law of earth. Soon, he arrived at the dark mountain. Our clan sincerely wants to integrate into the noble god spirit clan. In order to show our sincerity, Lord Devil Ancestor ordered me to bring a piece of reliable information. Previously, the goddess had projected her soul into the 8th dimension and was discovered by a soul that Lord Devil Ancestor had left in the lower realm a long time ago. Thus, the goddess must have mastered a special method to penetrate the seal of the 9th dimension. Once we suppress the goddess, we will know the special method to penetrate the seal of the 9th dimension. From there, the aristocrats can step into the lower realm. At the same time, the saintess of all heavens, who recently stepped into the supremes of heaven and earth, is currently with the goddess. As long as we suppress the two of them, the celestial emperor and the human king who are obstructing Lord Ancestor God will definitely submit. In the dark mountain, black fog lingered. A middle-aged man in a black robe in the ninth dimension was facing 5 ninth-dimensional divine commanders in front of him. He appeared very respectful and cautious as he said, "Lord Devil Ancestor already knows the specific location of the goddess and the saintess of all heavens. If Lord Devil Ancestor agrees to let us join the noble god spirit clan, Lord Devil Ancestor will immediately lead your supremes of heaven and earth to suppress the goddess and the saintess of all heavens. We will definitely be able to suppress the two of them at the first moment, and then threaten the celestial emperor and the human king. Your clan will instantly win the war that will last for eternity." After saying that, the black-robed middle-aged man stretched out his hands and presented a black demonic pearl to the 5 ninth-dimensional realm god commanders. "This is one of the magical treasures of Lord Devil Ancestor. Please hand it over to the supreme god monarchs of your race. As long as you agree, you can use this magical artifact to communicate with Lord Devil Ancestor and discuss the details of the future." Facing the 5 ninth-dimensional divine commanders of the God Spirit clan, the middle-aged man in the black robe trembled slightly, and traces of fear could be seen in his eyes. This was because, although they were all in the ninth-dimensional realm, the God Spirit clan's ninth-dimensional experts were much stronger than him. If they were to fight, any of the God Spirit clan's ninth-dimensional divine commanders could easily kill him. Lin Tian was hiding under the dark mountain using the law of earth. When he heard the words of the middle-aged man in the black robe, his expression changed. He was both shocked and angry. The Devil Ancestor, one of the supremes of heaven and earth of the ninth-dimensional heaven, actually wanted to defect to the God Spirit clan and lead the supremes of heaven and earth of the God Spirit clan to suppress his mother and master's wife. This made him unable to help but reveal a trace of killing intent. Soon after, his expression changed. "Damn it!" he cursed in his heart. Using the law of earth, he immediately retreated and fled with extreme speed. Because of his anger, he accidentally revealed his killing intent. Once this killing intent was revealed, it would definitely be discovered by the middle-aged man in the black robe and the God Spirit clan's ninth-dimensional divine commanders. Using the law of earth, he traveled underground as if he was walking on flat ground. In the blink of an eye, he was already far away. Almost at the same time, just as he had expected, the middle-aged man in the black robe and the God Spirit clan's ninth-dimensional divine commanders discovered his aura. Among them, one of the God Spirit clan's ninth-dimensional divine commanders attacked. With a rumbling sound, the ground collapsed. Huge cracks appeared and spread in all directions like a spider web. An extremely terrifying aura of destruction interweaved. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lin Tian was forced out of the ground. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Intense pain spread throughout his body, but he didn't stop. He raised his speed to the limit and continued to flee. With his current cultivation, it was absolutely impossible for him to block a ninth-dimensional expert, especially a ninth-dimensional divine commander. Esteemed divine commanders, you must suppress him. He must have eavesdropped on our conversation and must not leak the news. Otherwise, the goddess and saintess of all heavens will definitely move to another place. After that, it will be very difficult to find their specific location and suppress them together. We can't let him leave alive, the middle-aged man in the black robe said and quickly attacked. Ninth-dimensional divine energy was released and pressed down on Lin Tian. He hadn't heard about Lin Tian from the Devil Ancestor. This was because Lin Tian controlled the law of reincarnation. The Devil Ancestor was very concerned about this and wanted to devour Lin Tian to seize Lin Tian's reincarnation. Therefore, he didn't tell anyone about Lin Tian. The eyes of the 5 ninth-dimensional divine commanders were cold. As they attacked together, unparalleled divine energy pressed down on Lin Tian. The space in all directions surged violently. Lin Tian was horrified. At this moment, he didn't dare to hold back. The third dimension energy of heaven and earth surged. His Rinnegan and Eye of Destiny opened at the same time. Using the light of reincarnation and the third dimension energy of heaven and earth, he blocked the attacks of the 6 people and teleported with the Eye of Destiny. With a whoosh, he used the Eye of Destiny to move far away in an instant. He spat out another mouthful of blood and his body swayed. Just now, although he used the third dimension energy of heaven and earth and the reincarnation energy to interfere with the attacks of the 6 people, he was injured by the recoil and almost had his body shattered. He gritted his teeth and increased his speed even more. He almost turned into a human-shaped lightning bolt and continued to flee into the distance. He used the Eye of Destiny to teleport continuously. At the same time, the middle-aged man in the black robe and the 5 ninth-dimensional divine commanders of the Divine Spirit clan had a drastic change in expression. Reincarnation! Everyone recognized the reincarnation energy that Lin Tian used and saw Lin Tian's Rinnegan. Someone had controlled reincarnation. Chase! Capture him! One of the divine commanders of the Divine Spirit clan said. In an instant, he crossed an endless distance and chased after Lin Tian. Chapter 2461. A mere mortal can actually control reincarnation. The 5 ninth-dimensional divine commanders closed in on Lin Tian. Their eyes glinted as they raised their hands to grab Lin Tian. The void rumbled, and in the blink of an eye, the surrounding space was sealed. Lin Tian's expression changed. He pushed all of his holy power to break out, but it was to no avail. The 5 ninth-dimensional heavenly marshals acted together. That kind of power was too strong, sealing off the surroundings and solidifying the surroundings. However, at this moment, holy light intertwined beside Lin Tian, and 2 figures appeared silently. The holy energy released by the 5 ninth-dimensional god marshals disappeared in an instant, and their expressions changed greatly. At the same time, Lin Tian's body relaxed. For a moment, he was moved, and then joy appeared on his face. Mother! Master's wife! The 2 figures that appeared next to him were the goddess and the All-Heaven Saint. The goddess smiled at Lin Tian. 2 years ago, I left an imprint on your body so that I could sense it immediately after ascending to the 9th dimension. Little Ten. The saintess chuckled. She was wearing a green dress, and her body was naturally surrounded by the aura of a heaven and earth sovereign. She had reached this level 3 months ago. Almost at the same time, the sound of air being torn apart rang out. The 5 ninth-dimensional divine commanders fled at an extremely fast speed. They all had divine bodies, but they knew that they were no match for the goddess and the saintess. The difference in combat power was too great. However, they had only retreated 3 feet when endless holy light descended from the sky. With a thought from the goddess, they were all wiped out in an instant. In the distance, the black-robed middle-aged man appeared and chased after them. He happened to see this scene from afar and was immediately horrified. He fled without looking back. Mother, Master's wife, capture him. He is a subordinate of the demon ancestor. That bastard demon ancestor wants to defect to the gods and plot against you. Lin Tian quickly spoke. The goddess and the saintess' gazes flickered. The saintess moved and instantly captured the black-robed middle-aged man. Sirs, spare my life! The black-robed middle-aged man was trembling in fear. Ignoring the fact that one of them was the wife of a heavenly emperor, and the other was the wife of a human king, the strength of the 2 of them were at the supremes of heaven and earth. In front of the 2 of them, he was not even comparable to an ant. The All-Heaven's holy maiden didn't say anything and directly searched his soul. A moment later, she frowned and killed the black-robed man with a palm strike. Little Ten is right. Demon Alpha has been in contact with the God's Spirit clan many times. Our secret land has been discovered, she said. The goddess said, although I always knew that the demon ancestor wasn't a good person, I didn't expect him to do something that crossed his bottom line. This time, it's all thanks to Little Ten sneaking in and discovering this matter. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. The All-Heaven's holy maiden chuckled. If the demon ancestor really brings the divine lords of the Divine Spirit clan to our doorstep, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape this calamity. She looked at Lin Tian and patted Lin Tian's head with a smile. You've just arrived and you've already helped us a lot. Well done. Thank you for your praise, mistress. Lin Tian said with a smile. After being separated for so long, he was very happy to see his mistress again. Moreover, his mistress had now stepped into the heaven and earth supreme level and was the 10th supreme in the 9th dimension heaven. The goddess's gaze was gentle. Very good! As expected of my child. Lin Tian scratched his head, paused, and said, Mother, mistress, now, shall we go and get rid of the demon ancestor? They were all supreme beings of heaven and earth. His mother, father, master, and masteress had been fighting for the sake of the 9-dimensional heavens and the lower realms for an eternity. However, in order to protect himself, the demon ancestor wanted to defect to the godly spirit race. He wanted to lead the godly spirit race to attack his mother and masteress, and then use them to threaten his father and master in order to help the godly spirit race win the war as soon as possible. Such behavior was just like those traitors on the Milky Way imperial star. The goddess nodded and said, Of course. Southeast region, demon path abyss. The All Heavens Holy Maiden said. Holy light intertwined around the two of them, and the void was distorted. In the blink of an eye, she brought Lin Tian to an abyss. Looking into the abyss, black mist lingered and intertwined with extremely terrifying demonic chi. Boom! When they arrived here, the goddess immediately made her move. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts pressed down mightily. The entire demon path abyss collapsed, and the demonic light dissipated. With a whoosh, a demonic shadow stepped out. His body was surrounded by extremely terrifying demonic light, and his eyes were extremely deep. It was the demon ancestor. Goddess, All Heaven's Holy Maiden, what is the meaning of this? The demon ancestor's voice was cold. Then, he quickly noticed Lin Tian, who was with the two of them. A glint flashed in his deep eyes, and then he looked at the goddess. You have the key to penetrate the seal of the 9th dimension and brought him here? What is your relationship? This time, you want to avenge him in the 8th dimension? Looking at the goddess, there was a hint of fear in his eyes. In the 8th dimension, I've already said that I didn't know he was related to you at that time. Moreover, you've already destroyed a strand of my will, so… Boom! Lightning fell from the sky, vast and unparalleled, and smashed the demon ancestor into pieces. Goddess! Don't you go too far. The demon ancestor was at the supreme level of heaven and earth. Naturally, it was impossible for him to be killed by the goddess in an instant. Soon, he reformed his physical body. His face was a little pale, and his eyes were cold. The goddess's beauty shocked the world. Her gaze fell on the demon ancestor, and it was cold. Lightning bolts filled the sky, mixed with various colors. The lightning was terrifying, and it directly trapped the demon ancestor. 2 years ago, you tried to devour my child. Now, you tried to defect to the enemy and ambush me and the Holy Maiden. New and old debts, I will settle them with you. Bolts of lightning intertwined, as if a supreme-level heavenly tribulation had descended. It was extremely turbulent. Lin Tian stood beside the goddess. At this moment he was moved. The endless lightning was too terrifying. It was definitely not ordinary lightning. He felt the extremely turbulent fluctuations of the laws. At the same time, on the other side, the demon ancestor's expression changed drastically. First, it was because he learned from the goddess that Lin Tian was the son of the goddess and the celestial emperor. Second, it was because his secret contact with the god clan had been discovered. Immediately, he did not say anything. With a low roar, monstrous demonic aura burst out, and the 7 demon pearls appeared together. The turbulent demonic light rolled and turned into a demonic wave. It went straight for the lightning bolts that the goddess had summoned. In the blink of an eye, the two collided. Rumble! The lightning bolts in the sky pressed down and shattered the 7 demon pearls. Then, with a poof, the demon ancestor was smashed into pieces. Such a scene made Lin Tian's expression change again. They were both supreme beings of heaven and earth. His mother, who was known as the goddess, was too powerful. The demon ancestor was not her match at all. In front of his mother, he was too weak. Rumble! The lightning bolts resounded through the sky. The goddess's eyes were cold. She stood above the abyss of the demonic path and did not move. Only the lightning bolts in the sky intertwined with each other. It was like a destructive heavenly punishment. Once again, it pressed down on the demon ancestor. Lin Tian stood beside the goddess. Wisps of light intertwined in his eyes. He stared at the lightning bolts seriously. The lightning bolts pressed down. The demon ancestor roared. The demonic light around his body boiled. He was extremely powerful. Kill. With a low roar, he pushed out a demonic light that could destroy heaven and earth, directly pressing down on the goddess. In the blink of an eye, the two collided again. The lightning bolts surged, shattering everything. The demon ancestor exploded again. Bits of flesh and blood splattered. A spatial crack appeared, and a demonic soul entered it. Then, the spatial crack disappeared instantly. He ran pretty fast, the goddess said. He knew very well that he was far from being your match. If he fought you head-on, he would die. Of course, he was prepared to escape from the beginning, the All-Heaven's Saintess said. Lin Tian stood beside the goddess. His eyes were bright. After a pause, the light in his eyes subsided. Wisps of lightning intertwined in his eyes. They flashed and disappeared. The goddess was suddenly moved. Her gaze fell on Lin Tian. She was a little surprised. At the same time, the All-Heaven's Saintesses were also moved. As expected of the child of you and the Heavenly Emperor. You spent hundreds of thousands of years to control the ninth heaven divine thunder, but this little guy learned it in the blink of an eye just by watching you use it. The All-Heaven's Saintesses exclaimed. The goddess was naturally very happy. She immediately reached out and hugged Lin Tian. For a moment she looked like a little girl. As expected of my child. Mother knew back then that you would definitely be very, very, very powerful when you grew up. The ninth heaven divine thunder was one of the 9-dimensional laws of the ninth dimension. It was a power similar to the heavenly tribulation. It was extremely domineering. Even someone as powerful as her had spent hundreds of thousands of years to control it. However, Lin Tian learned it in an instant. It was not until a few breaths later that she let go of Lin Tian. Lin Tian smiled modestly. He paused and asked the goddess and All-Heaven's Saintesses. The demon ancestor ran away? Is he okay? It's okay. He's nothing. The goddess smiled. She paused and looked at the collapsed demonic abyss. Since the demon ancestor lived here, this area must be extraordinary. Perhaps there will be some wonderful discoveries. Let's go down and take a look. Lin Tian nodded. He followed the goddess and All-Heaven's Saintesses into the demonic abyss. Inside, lightning interweaved and electric arcs lingered. It was the residual power of the ninth heaven divine thunder. There were many corpses and blood. They were the demon ancestors' subordinates. Many of them had died tragically under the goddess ninth heaven divine thunder. At the same time, many of the demon ancestors' subordinates trembled when they saw the goddess and All-Heaven's Saintesses. Many of them knelt down and kowtowed, begging the two to spare their lives. The goddess and All-Heaven's Saintesses did not kill these people and allowed them to leave. Soon after, they rose up with Lin Tian and stepped into a sacred palace at the center of the demonic abyss. There, they found a Tao platform. The Tao platform was surrounded by demonic qi and extremely pure divine spiritual Tao power. It was formed completely by divine spiritual Tao power and was very shocking. Enlightenment divine spiritual stone. The goddess raised her hand and grabbed it. She purified the demonic qi on it with holy light. She compressed it and handed it to Lin Tian. It was formed by the divine spiritual Tao power of heaven and earth. The demon ancestor used it as a Tao platform. If you refine it directly, you should be able to reach the creation realm in a short time. Lin Tian's eyes could not help but shine. He also believed that he could reach the creation realm in a short time if he refined this enlightenment divine spiritual stone. And as long as he reached the creation realm, he could completely unseal the soul root. Chapter 2462. Let's keep looking and see if there's anything else of value, the goddess said. Lin Tian put away the Enlightenment Sacred Spirit Stone and continued to search the demonic abyss with the goddess and the saintesses. Soon, the entire demonic abyss was completely searched. Other than the Enlightenment Sacred Spirit Stone, there was nothing else of special value. Obviously, the valuable things were all carried by the demonic ancestor. "Let's go. Let's leave this place," the saintess said. Lin Tian nodded. The three of them left the demonic abyss and soon came to a ruined mountain range. Most of the ninth dimension has been destroyed. The divine lords of the Divine Spirit Clan are searching the entire ninth dimension. Most of the time, we are fighting in a roundabout way, the goddess said. Since the secret place has been exposed, there's no need to go back. Little Ten, stay here and refine the Enlightenment Sacred Spirit Stone. The saintess and I will guard you. Lin Tian nodded. On this day, in this ruined and desolate mountain range, he began to refine the Enlightenment Sacred Spirit Stone. 9 colored holy lights surrounded his body. As he refined the Enlightenment Sacred Spirit Stone, his essence, qi, and spirit rose little by little. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. 7 days later, he refined the Tao Comprehension Saint Spirit Stone and reached the primordial realm from the 8th dimensional realm. With a loud boom, a pitch-black lightning vortex appeared in the sky above this place, and within it, there were crackling sounds of lightning. He opened his eyes and temporarily stopped cultivating. He took out the reincarnation sword and went through the tribulation together. After that, he began to cultivate again. The Enlightenment Sacred Spirit Stone was completely condensed from the purest saint power and Tao power in the world. It did not contain any impurities. If one refined it for cultivation, the improvement of one's cultivation base could be said to be very fast, and there would be no side effects. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. Half a month later, on this day, his cultivation base stepped into the creation realm, and he attracted the creation realm heavenly tribulation. Boom! The thunder was ear-piercing and shook the world. The space in all directions became completely dark, and a destructive aura came down from the sky. Lin Tian was not afraid. He took out the reincarnation sword and faced the heavenly tribulation. Boom! 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 On this day, terrifying waves of lightning punishment struck down one after another. It was only after nearly 20,000 waves of lightning punishment that the heavenly tribulation of the manifestation realm finally dissipated. Rainbow-colored auspicious clouds appeared, and streaks of rainbow-colored holy light poured down from them. With a slight thought, Lin Tian condensed the samsara sword again. He used the 7-colored holy light to temper his flesh and stabilize his cultivation in the creation realm. Very quickly, 15 minutes passed, and his cultivation base remained firmly at the creation realm. Using his divine will, he could see that the saint energy in his body had undergone an earth-shattering change. The three-dimensional world in his body had also become much more powerful. As his cultivation base was elevated to the creation realm, there was a very shocking qualitative change. Not bad. The goddess flashed over. Now that Lin Tian had stepped into the creation realm, she was naturally happy. The All-Heaven Saintesses smiled warmly. Lin Tian chuckled and put away the reincarnation sword. He paused and asked the goddess and saintesses, "Mother, mistress, what's so special about the 9th dimension? Where the psionic power is very dense, I can unlock the last seal on my soul root." Once his cultivation base reached the manifestation stage, he could unlock the last seal on his soul root. Once it was unlocked, it would draw in the endless psionic power within a radius of tens of thousands of miles in a short period of time, which would help him quickly improve his cultivation base. Now, he had to find a place where the psionic power was relatively dense to unlock the last seal on his soul root. After that, he would definitely be able to step into the tribulation stage in just a few days. Most importantly, after unlocking the last seal on his soul root, he would be the real him at that time. There would be no doubt that he would undergo an extremely shocking transformation. Whether it was in terms of pure combat strength or understanding of all things in the world, it would be at least 10,000 times stronger than it was now. Now, The ninth dimension was in chaos, and the lineage of divine spirits was extremely strong. He needed a strong combat strength as support, and he had to become stronger as soon as possible. Hearing his words, the goddess and saintess's eyes moved slightly, especially the goddess, whose eyes were extremely bright. "Can you really unlock all the seals?" she asked Lin Tian. According to her and the celestial Thearcha's estimation, Lin Tian should have at least the cultivation base of the ninth dimension realm to unlock the last seal on his soul root. But now, Lin Tian had just reached the manifestation stage, and he could already unlock all the seals on his soul root. "The suppression of your potential by the final seal is greater than that of the previous 8 seals combined," she said in a deep voice. Too much potential would cause a very large burden. Once it exceeded a critical point without enough strength to bear it, it would be a devastating disaster. Therefore, at this time, she was naturally very concerned about this. "Yes, no problem," Lin Tian nodded. "In the past, with the help of Master and Mistress, I achieved the reincarnation physique. With the help of this physique, the ability to bear potential is very helpful. Now I can bear all of it." Hearing Lin Tian's affirmation, the goddess no longer had any doubts. After all, Lin Tian knew best when the seals on his soul root could be truly unlocked. She looked at the saintesses and pulled them aside. "Thank you? Thank you very much. If it weren't for you and the human king, back in the 4th dimension, my child might have." Her eyes were full of gratitude, but at the same time, she couldn't help but feel a little guilty. The celestial Darch and she were Lin Tian's parents, but in fact, the human king and the saintesses were more like parents than they were. Fate is destined to be like this. The saintesses chuckled, looked at Lin Tian, and smiled gently. "Both of us like this child very much. It's not because of his potential, but because of his character." The goddess thanked them again, and then looked at Lin Tian. "Now, most of the areas in the 9th dimension are ruined, but there are still some places that are intact. There are a few special areas where the spiritual energy is very dense." Then, together with the saintesses, she took Lin Tian and left this place, carefully concealing their auras. Not long after, they came to an immortal forest surrounded by a faint white mist. Just by standing on the periphery, one could feel the extremely dense spiritual energy. This place has many earth vein traps, and ordinary 9th-dimensional cultivators don't dare to casually step in. However, with us here, there won't be any problem for you to go in," the goddess said. Yes. She and the saintesses were both in the heaven and earth supreme realm, so it wouldn't be a problem for them to protect Lin Tian. Hearing this, Lin Tian smiled proudly. "Mother, actually, I don't need you and Mistress to protect me. With my current creation realm cultivation base, I can move freely in here," he said. "My 4th senior brother created a very amazing technique that can control the momentum of heaven and earth. In some special earth vein traps, it can even borrow the momentum of heaven and earth to fight. It's very easy to cross 2 realms to kill an enemy. With that technique, I can move freely in here." When he arrived at this place, he instantly noticed that the immortal forest was filled with earth veins. It was extremely dangerous. However, with his current creation realm cultivation base and the dragon burial scripture, he could definitely move through such a killing trap without any pressure. Moreover, in addition to the dragon burial scripture, he also controlled the 3-dimensional and 7-dimensional laws of Earth, which were also very helpful. "Yes, I heard about your 9 senior brothers from your mistress. They all take good care of you. After this, I will personally thank them." The goddess smiled. Lin Tian nodded. His 9 senior brothers were really very good to him. To him, they were all like blood brothers. On this day, in this place, the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens were guarding him outside the immortal forest. He walked into the immortal forest and used the dragon burial scripture to open a path. Soon, he arrived at the center of the immortal forest, where the spiritual energy was the densest. When he arrived at this place, he took a deep breath. With a slight thought, he slowly removed the last seal on the soul sealing root. After a few breaths, the last seal on the soul-sealing root in the depths of his divine soul was completely broken and completely dissipated. In an instant, his soul-sealing root shone brightly, causing his divine soul to tremble violently and become incomparably resplendent. Boom! An extremely shocking beam of light shot into the sky, almost piercing through the entire world. In the sky above his head, ancient phenomena of heaven and earth appeared one after another, covering the entire sky. At the same time, within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, surging spiritual energy and Tao power crazily rushed over and surged into his body. Lin Tian immediately trembled. In his eyes, light was hazy, and then became incomparably bright, as if he had woken up from an endless sleep. In an instant, the entire world became incomparably clear in his eyes, becoming extremely bright. The myriad Tao of heaven and earth boiled with the fluctuations. Beside his body, tens of thousands of streaks of power interweaved. Lightning rumbled in the heavens, and golden ancient patterns appeared. Raging flames suddenly appeared on their own, and a special hurricane swept out strand after strand. Then, on the surface of the earth, immortal trees grew one after another, and the territory rose and fell like waves. There was even a black halo, white holy radiance, and hazy blue radiance that interweaved together. Astonishing fluctuations of Tao power, a vigorous aura of order, and an unparalleled pressure of laws rolled over here. 9 heavens divine thunder, 9 heavens golden runes, 9 heavens immortal wood, 9 heavens earth, 9 heavens holy wind, 9 heavens burning flame, 9 heavens immortal een, 9 heavens blazing sun, 9 heavens returning to void. The all-heavens saintesses were moved, and their eyes flickered violently. As Lin Tian unlocked the complete soul-sealing root, at this moment, the 9 most fundamental dimensional laws of the 9th dimension actually revolved around Lin Tian on their own, jumping around and submitting to him. The goddess' eyes also flickered, but compared to the all-heavens saintesses, she was much better. After all, she knew better than the all-heavens saintesses how powerful her child's soul-sealing root was, and that it contained the potential to withstand a complete reincarnation. Boom! In the immortal forest, holy light surged, myriad Tao power, endless order, vigorous laws, and all kinds of different forces intertwined. Chapter 2463. Within a range of hundreds of thousands of miles, billowing Holy Spirit Qi kept surging and entering Lin Tian's body. Buzz! 9-colored holy light intertwined outside Lin Tian's body, and his essence, Qi, and spirit were rapidly increasing. Apart from the Tao of heaven and earth and the endless order, the 9-dimensional laws of the 9th dimension surrounded him like subjects, causing the goddesses and saintesses of all heavens to be moved. They had never seen such a scene before. Spiritual energy surged, and Lin Tian's eyes shone brightly as he actively operated the Reincarnation Heart Sutra to refine the spiritual energy. For a time, his essence, Qi, and spirit were rapidly increasing. At the same time, the speed of his cultivation was also increasing. In the sky, ancient anomalies of heaven and earth appeared one after another, and each of them seemed real and extremely terrifying. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Boom! Shocking thunder rumbled, and the last seal on the soul root was undone, and its potential was completely released. The spiritual energy surging from hundreds of thousands of miles away was so dense that it allowed him to go from the creation realm to the tribulation realm in just 3 days, and at this moment, it attracted the tribulation realm. A pitch-black thunder vortex appeared in the sky, rumbling, and more anomalies of heaven and earth appeared. With a rumble, the main lightning punishment fell in the blink of an eye. As the lightning punishment passed through, everything in the surroundings immediately collapsed. The void collapsed piece by piece, and everything was destroyed. Outside Lin Tian's body, his aura was majestic. He stood still and took out the reincarnation sword to go through the tribulation. The 9 heavens divine thunder law vibrated and surrounded his body to protect him. Only the reincarnation sword was exposed to the outside, and it was constantly being struck by lightning. Boom! 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 The lightning punishment kept striking here, and it was not until nearly 70,000 strikes of the main lightning punishment had passed that the heavenly tribulation dissipated. Lin Tian gathered the reincarnation sword again, and used the power of the seven-colored auspicious clouds after the heavenly tribulation to temper his flesh and body and stabilize his cultivation. Boom! Within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, there was still surging spiritual energy and Tao power. After unsealing the complete soul root, his potential was too vast. Now, his potential had not completely stabilized from its active state, so the Tao of heaven and earth was still greatly affected. The Tao of heaven and earth, the endless order, and the 9 types of laws of the 9th dimension became even more turbulent. Continue! Lin Tian's eyes were intertwined with a bright light. He put the reincarnation sword back into his body and continued to cultivate. Now that he had unsealed a complete soul root, the entire world became extremely clear in his eyes. He could instantly understand all kinds of problems on the path of cultivation. It was as simple as drinking water. With this amazing understanding of the Tao of heaven and earth, his cultivation continued of the heaven and earth. As his cultivation base rose and his essence, qi, and spirit continued to grow stronger, the worldly anomalies that appeared above the firmament became more and more shocking. The beam of light that appeared before became even more dazzling, entering the firmament with him as the center. It attracted the attention of many living beings in the vast 9th dimension. Many of them were moved, and all of them were shocked. That aura! In an ancient mountain, the demon ancestor's body was stained with blood. He looked at the place where the beam of light shot up from afar, and his eyes narrowed. He sensed this aura immediately. It was Lin Tian's aura. Looking there, his eyes kept fluctuating. Reincarnation, reincarnation, reincarnation. He was mumbling, and there was a trace of greed in his eyes that could not be concealed. Reincarnation. If he could obtain this power and cultivate it to perfection one day, then he would definitely be invincible. He believed that he could even easily suppress the 10 most powerful ancestral gods of the Divine Spirit clan. After a pause, he secretly hid his aura and headed toward the place where the beam of light shot up. There, the beam of light was too eye-catching. He believed that some of the Divine Spirit clan's experts in the nearby area would definitely go there to take a look after sensing this beam of light. Then, there would be divine emperors of heaven and earth descending. When they discovered Lin Tian and Lin Tian's goddess, saintess of all heavens, there would definitely be a divine emperor-level battle. He secretly sneaked to that area. Perhaps he could take advantage of the chaos to suppress Lin Tian and snatch reincarnation. This was a rare opportunity. In the other areas of 9th dimension of heaven. It's not the aura of a member of our clan. Let's go and take a look. In several areas, the experts of the Divine Spirit clan were searching for living beings of this world. Seeing this scene, the eyes of some divine emperors of heaven and earth narrowed slightly. The beam of light, in terms of aura, was not very strong for divine emperors of heaven and earth, but it was accompanied by a series of heaven and earth anomalies. Even from afar, they could vaguely see it. This made these divine emperors very concerned. Then, in several different areas, powerful divine emperors moved one after another, heading toward the place where the beam of light shot up. Buzz! In the immortal forest, Lin Tian cultivated seriously. His essence, energy, and spirit were constantly improving, and his cultivation continued to increase. In the blink of an eye, another half a day passed. Half a day later, his cultivation went from early-stage tribulation realm to mid-stage tribulation realm. The spiritual Taoist power surrounding him was already gone. The spiritual Taoist power within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was completely drained by his sudden burst of potential. Boom! Thunder rumbled and pressed down. At the level of tribulation realm, every time one stepped on a small step, it would attract a shocking heavenly tribulation. Lin Tian already knew about this, so he was not surprised at all. He took out the reincarnation sword and went through the heavenly tribulation again. Boom, 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 boom. The heavenly tribulation continued until nearly 100,000 rounds of the main heavenly tribulation struck down. Only then did the heavenly tribulation dissipate. Rainbow auspicious clouds appeared. He gathered the reincarnation sword again and used the power of the rainbow auspicious clouds to stabilize his tribulation realm cultivation. After that, until half an hour passed, the rainbow auspicious clouds dispersed. His cultivation was firmly at mid-stage tribulation realm, and his essence, energy, and spirit were extremely strong. The immortal forest here had been completely razed to the ground, and it was scorched black. He stood on this devastated land and looked at himself with his divine sense. The saint power in his body was majestic to the extreme, as if it was truly inexhaustible. The origin of life became brighter, like an eternal and indestructible sun that could dispel all the darkness between heaven and earth. At the same time, the most important thing was that in the depths of his divine soul, the soul root was bright to the extreme. It was completely unsealed, causing his divine soul to become extremely tough. Moreover, it caused his understanding of heaven and earth to be extremely clear. Now, everything in his field of vision, anything, he could understand and comprehend at a glance. Affected by this, the three-dimensional world in his body became even more shocking, giving birth to another shocking transformation. Surpassing the 7 dimensions! His eyes were intertwined with a bright light. Now, although the three-dimensional world in his body had not perfectly integrated all the dimensional laws, as his soul root was completely unsealed, at this moment, the speed at which the three-dimensional world integrated with other dimensional laws was obviously many times faster than before. In terms of the strength of heaven and earth, it was absolutely superior to the 7 dimensions, and it was superior by a lot. The spiritual energy that existed in the three-dimensional world was no longer simple spiritual energy. It was already extremely dense holy spiritual energy. In this world now, in each different world, countless immortal treasures and ancient trees were growing, and it was extremely prosperous. Great! He could not help but say to himself, clenching his right fist. Now the seal on his soul root was completely unsealed, and with the three-dimensional world in his body, he felt as if he could do anything. In the distance, the goddess and saintess of all heaven's eyes fell on him. At this moment, their eyes could not help but fluctuate. Amazing! Saintess of all heaven said. Looking at Lin Tian at this moment, even she, who was at the supreme level of heaven and earth, could not help but be moved. Now, Lin Tian's cultivation was at the intermediate tribulation realm, but the intertwined aura was far stronger than that of a tribulation realm cultivator. The goddess was much stronger than her, but her eyes were still fluctuating. Naturally, she could feel the strength of Lin Tian's aura at this moment. It was too amazing. The aura that naturally exuded from his body was not inferior to that of an ordinary ninth dimension expert. It was also at this moment that her eyes suddenly flickered, and she directly swept her gaze in several directions in the distant sky, her eyes narrowing. Beside her, the saintess of all heaven's eyes also flickered. At the same time, on the scorched soil, Lin Tian was also moved, and he tilted his head to look in several directions. Almost in the next moment, whooshing sounds could be heard. In the distant sky, from several different directions, a total of 18 figures rushed over and arrived at this place in the blink of an eye. All of them were wearing the special clothing of the lineage of gods, and their auras were extremely strong. Lin Tian's eyes flickered. People of the lineage of gods! Divine lords! He could feel the strength of these 18 people. All of them were heaven and earth supremes, and they were all divine lords of the lineage of gods. This caused his eyes to narrow slightly. The lineage of gods was indeed terrifying. In the entire ninth dimension heaven, there were only 10 heaven and earth supremes in total, including his master's wife, who had just become a heaven and earth supremes. However, this lineage of gods could casually send 18 experts of this level to this place. This meant that the total number of heaven and earth supremes of this lineage of gods was at least over 100. Almost at the same time, the 18 divine lords arrived and immediately saw him, the goddess, and the saintess of all heavens. Goddess. Saintess of all heavens. Found them. Take them down. At this moment, these divine lords directly ignored Lin Tian, and their gazes fell on the goddess and the saintess of all heavens. At the same time, they launched a sky full of saint-killing techniques, which mightily suppressed the two of them. The heaven and earth supreme's coercion surged to the extreme, almost directly destroying this part of the ninth dimension heaven and earth. Stand back first. The goddess transmitted her voice to Lin Tian, and the nine heavens' divine thunderlow rolled, causing the firmament to rumble, and destructive lightning to fall straight down. Little Ten, you have a very strong foundation, but your cultivation is still a long way from theirs. If you have the chance, you should escape first. The saintess of all heavens said. As her voice fell, she also moved. A special breeze swept out, and together with the goddess, pressed down on the 18 divine lords. Ninth dimension law, 9 heavens sacred wind. Chapter 2464. 20 Supremes of Heaven and Earth battled together. Saint energy filled the sky, suppressing all directions. Boom! 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 This area was constantly rumbling, and large swaths of the void were collapsing along with it. The goddess and saintess of all heavens had mastered the law of the ninth dimension. At this moment, they attacked together, fighting the 18 divine sovereigns of the god-spirit lineage. Today, you will be suppressed, one of the 18 divine sovereigns said coldly. When the 18 of them worked together, their combat power was amazing. Even the goddess and saintess of all heavens could not suppress them. Lin Tian stood in the distance, his eyes intertwined with faint light. The three-dimensional world in his body shook as the rich power of heaven and earth intertwined. In the blink of an eye, a dazzling sword of heaven and earth condensed in his hand. Clang! Without any unnecessary movements, he raised his hand and activated the sword of heaven and earth with the reincarnation sword technique. The sharp sword momentum turned into 18 killing swords. Each killing sword was aimed at a supreme-level divine sovereign. The void in all directions shattered with a crack. The 18 divine sovereigns were shocked. Their eyes narrowed as they dodged together, shattering all 18 killing swords. The power of heaven and earth? The 18 of them looked at Lin Tian and the sword of heaven and earth in Lin Tian's hand. One of them said. At the same time, the goddess and saintess of all heavens were also shocked. Their eyes also fell on the sword of heaven and earth in Lin Tian's hand. Originally, they wanted Lin Tian to retreat. They did not think that Lin Tian could deal with supreme-level divine sovereigns. After all, cultivation was the foundation. Lin Tian was only at the mid-stage of Tribulation Realm. There was still a ninth dimension between him and supreme-level divine sovereigns. Moreover, the supreme-level divine sovereigns were all much stronger than ordinary supreme-level divine sovereigns. However, as Lin Tian attacked, both of them were shocked. The power of that sword was really terrifying. Mother Masteress, I will fight with you! Lin Tian stepped forward and said. Now that his soul root had been fully opened, coupled with the reincarnation forging spirit technique, his combat strength was far beyond what could be predicted with common sense. In addition, the third dimension heaven and earth force in his body was no weaker than the seventh dimension heaven and earth. He had the confidence to fight with these supremes of heaven and earth in front of him without any fear. Buzz! Faint golden divine light intertwined as he activated the five-dimensional indestructible law, which fell on the goddesses and saintesses of all heavens. This kind of law could enhance the strength of others to a certain extent. As the light of these laws fell on the goddess and saintess of all heavens, their auras soared. In the blink of an eye, it doubled in strength. Indestructible law? Are you in control? The goddess's eyes flickered. She naturally knew about the laws of the fifth dimension. Yes. Lin Tian nodded. The indestructible laws were also added to his body, causing his aura to become even stronger. In the next moment, his eyes opened. His Rinnegan and Eye of Destiny opened at the same time. The surging aura of reincarnation and destiny intertwined, causing the aura around his body to become even more shocking. Facing the 18 heaven and earth supremes of the God-Spirit clan, he naturally did not dare to be careless. He activated his full strength. In an instant, the expressions of the 18 Sir Gods on the opposite side changed. Reincarnation! You were the one who triggered that beam of light and those heaven and earth anomalies earlier? You were born from reincarnation? The 18 of them all stared at Lin Tian. As Sir Gods of the God Spirit clan, high-level gods naturally knew about the power of reincarnation. In fact, they knew better than other living beings that reincarnation was the Tao of invincibility. It's no big deal to control some reincarnation. In the end, you can't control it completely, so it's meaningless. One of them said coldly. Reincarnation was terrifying. It was a truly invincible power. However, that was referring to the complete reincarnation. Although it had many wonderful uses if one did not control the complete reincarnation, it was definitely not invincible in terms of power. At this moment, they could clearly sense that Lin Tian's reincarnation was still far too far away from reaching the greater mastery level. They did not believe that Lin Tian would be able to control a complete reincarnation in the future. However, after their initial shock, they no longer paid any attention to it. Back then, even their ancestor god had said that he could not control the complete reincarnation. If their ancestor god could not do it, how could a mere mortal from the lower domain do it? It was simply impossible. Not to mention the ancestor god of the deity plane, in your lower domain, even the heavenly emperors and human kings of the lower domain did not dare to touch the taboo. You, a mere tribulation realm, dare to touch it. You're really stupid and don't know what's good for you. The leader of the group spoke in a cold voice. When he mentioned the heavenly emperors and human kings, he could not help but tremble slightly. They were born from heaven and earth, and each of them had a pure divine body. They were all divine spirits, so they were incomparably arrogant. They believed that they were superior to all races and that no one in the lower domain could stop them. However, when they first stepped out of the 10 divine regions, the 2 men in this lower domain made them feel fear. The 2 strongest divine spirits of their bloodline below the ancestor god of the 10 directions were actually obliterated by those 2 with a raise of their hands. Even their invincible ancestor god was intercepted in the 10 divine regions. The ancestor god's divine might is boundless. Those 2 barely managed to delay the ancestor god. They will definitely be annihilated by the ancestor god very soon. Before that happens, we have to at least suppress this lower domain. When they thought of the heavenly emperors and human kings, the killing intent in these divine spirits' eyes was very strong. When they thought of the heavenly emperors, they could not help but clench their fists. After stepping out of the 10 divine regions, they could have slaughtered their way down to the lower domain in search of the 10th dimension's core, but the celestial emperor had sealed them away in the 9th dimension. The fact that the celestial emperor had set up such a trap before he'd gone to stop their ancestor god filled them with fury. There's no point in talking. Let's do it! Suppress them all. They'll all be of great use. The 18 divine spirits' voices were frosty. 18 mighty waves of holy aura interwove with each other, and froze the space around them. Boundless divine might pressed down on the 3 divine spirits. Be careful. The goddess faced Lin Tian now, and the 9th heaven divine lightning met the 18 divine spirits head-on. The all heaven's holy maidens moved in unison, unleashing the 9th heaven divine wind to create an endless hurricane that could cut through everything. With Lin Tiandao's laws of indestructibility, the 2 divine spirits' battle prowess was doubled, and the situation was much better than before. Lin Tiandao's left eye was the eye of destiny, and his right eye was the reincarnation eye. The light of samsara and the light of destiny tumbled together, and the long river of destiny and the heavenly river of samsara surged out. He activated the sword of heaven and earth to perform the reincarnation sword technique, attacking the 18 divine spirits indiscriminately. At the same time, he moved with the reincarnation step, leaving behind afterimages in the space as he took the initiative to meet the attacks of the 18 divine spirits. He cooperated with the Eye of Destiny, the Reincarnation Eye, and the Sword of Heaven and Earth, as well as the attacks of the Goddess and the All Heaven's Holy Maidens. Now that his soul roots had been fully awakened and his cultivation had reached the Tribulation Realm, he had the support of the three-dimensional Heaven and Earth, and the Reincarnation Forging Spirit Art had increased his battle prowess by 20 times. With all these factors combined, he was no longer afraid of ordinary supremes of heaven and earth in a head-on battle. However, he wasn't afraid of ordinary supremes of heaven and earth, but at this time, he was facing the 18 supremes of heaven and earth from the Divine Spirit clan. Although he wasn't afraid, he was still very cautious. After all, everyone in this clan had a divine body. After reaching the supremes of heaven and earth, their strength was far beyond ordinary supremes of heaven and earth. They were much stronger than the demon ancestor. In a head-on battle, he was still no match for the lords of this clan, so he could only attack them in a roundabout way. Boom! 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 Shockingly large collisions occurred from time to time. The void was collapsing piece by piece. Lin Tian used all kinds of remarkable skills, cooperating with the goddess and the All-Heaven's holy maidens to fight the 18 lords of heaven. The goddess and the All-Heaven's holy maidens were at the front, while he assisted in the attacks from the rear. He moved around at extreme speed, and he took the initiative to meet the attacks that weren't life-threatening. This caused the 18 lords of heaven and earth to be slightly surprised. They couldn't understand Lin Tian's actions, and even the goddess was slightly puzzled. Only the All-Heaven's holy maiden's eyes flickered, and she guessed something at this moment. She transmitted her voice to the goddess. "Let some of the attacks that aren't life-threatening to Little Ten." The goddess's eyes narrowed, and she didn't quite understand. However, she didn't ask and immediately did as she was told. This was because she knew very well that the All-Heaven's holy maidens knew Lin Tian far better than she did. Since he said so, there must be a reason. Immediately, she summoned the 9 heavens' divine thunder and cooperated with the All-Heaven's holy maidens to meet the 18 lords of heaven. She rushed to the front, blocking some of the extremely terrifying killing moves, and let Lin Tian deal with the rest of the killing moves on his own. Lin Tian's eyes flickered, and the sword of heaven and earth in his hand boiled. The light of samsara and the power of destiny surged with it. He cooperated with the goddess and the All-Heaven's holy maidens to interfere with the 18 lords of heaven and took the initiative to meet the killing moves of the 18 lords of heaven and earth. Boom! Boom! The fierce battle caused the sky to darken, and the ground to sink by at least 100 feet. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Mother Masteress stepped back. 3 days later, Lin Tian spoke, and in the blink of an eye, he passed by the goddess and the All-Heaven's holy maidens and stepped forward. "Trying to be a hero? Stupid thing!" one of the 18 gods said coldly. The 18 of them moved at the same time, and boundless saint power pressed down on Lin Tian. Lin Tian's eyes were deep, and strands of saint runes of order intertwined around his body. The next moment, with a boom, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly erupted from his body, and it destroyed all the saint power that the 18 gods had summoned, causing the 18 lords of heaven to tremble in unison. "You!" The 18 of them were all shocked. At this moment, Lin Tian was like a completely different person, and his aura was too powerful. Most importantly, the aura that Lin Tian emitted was the aura of a god that belonged to them. In the back, the goddess was also moved, shocked by this scene. At this moment, Lin Tian, her child, was emitting the aura of a god, and it was far stronger than the 18 lords of heaven and earth. "Let's give them a surprise." The All-Heaven's holy maidens smiled gently. In front, outside Lin Tian's body, the rolling aura of a god was mighty and surging to the extreme. For the past 3 days, he had been constantly refining the attacks of the 18 lords of heaven and earth, and at this moment, his power was multiplied. "Absolute counterattack!" Looking at the 18 of them, he said coldly, raised his right hand, and punched out. Chapter 2465. The dazzling fist light shrouded the surroundings and completely enveloped the space. The expressions of the 18 divine lords of the lineage of divine spirits changed drastically. They all put up a powerful defensive light screen to block the attack. However, it was useless. The defensive light screen was destroyed in an instant. The next moment, the multiplied divine spirit light drowned the group of people. Poof! 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 Blood mist exploded one by one. The 18 people were all shattered. Only their spiritual souls were preserved and did not decay. However, even though their bodies and souls weren't destroyed immediately, all of their souls were extremely weak. It was to the extent that they couldn't even reform their physical bodies at this moment. What did you do? What's going on? The 18 divine lords looked at Lin Tian in shock and anger. Their eyes were full of coldness. A mortal from the lower domain had suddenly summoned their divine spirit aura, and it was even more powerful than theirs. The goddess was also puzzled. She looked at the All-Heaven's Holy Maiden in shock. She knew that the All-Heaven's Holy Maiden must know something. His divine order ability can refine and accumulate all the attacks that fall on his body within a tolerable range. Then, he can retaliate by multiplying the attacks, the Holy Maiden said to the goddess. The Saintess of the All-Heavens said to the goddess. Back then, when she projected her psyche into the four-dimensional world, her memories of Lin Tian's divine ability of order returned to her body after her psyche dissipated. Therefore, she naturally knew about Lin Tian's divine ability of order. The goddess was shocked when she heard this. Could refine and accumulate all the attacks that fall on his body within a tolerable range, and then retaliate by multiplying the attacks? This type of technique could be said to be extremely frightening. Many times, it could display unimaginable divine effects, becoming the ultimate trump card of a sect. For example, the current battle. After 3 days, she had used the absolute counterattack to launch this punch. She could already see the outcome of this battle. On the other side, the 18 divine lords were also shocked when they heard the All-Heaven's Holy Maiden's words. No wonder you took the initiative to meet our attack, one of them said coldly. Despicable and treacherous mortal! Lin Tian swept his gaze over this person, his eyes cold and indifferent. With a slight thought, a blinding thunderbolt instantly descended from his head. Ah! The deity who spoke let out a miserable shriek as his divine soul was directly shattered into pieces. The other 17 Sir-Gods were all shocked and enraged. One of their heaven and earth supreme-level divine monarchs was actually killed by Lin Tian, a lower realm tribulation realm person. Retreat! One of them gritted his teeth. Under Lin Tian's absolute counterattack just now, they managed to survive, but it was very difficult. Now, even an ordinary 8th-dimensional realm cultivator could pose a threat to them. Can you escape? Lin Tianling said. The Empyrean god moved, and dense thunderbolts directly descended from the heavens. Sizzle! 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 In the blink of an eye, the remaining 17 gods were all smashed into pieces by the unparalleled lightning. In an instant, the entire place fell silent. The goddess and the All-Heaven's Holy Maiden walked over. They looked at Lin Tian and were not stingy with their praise. 18 divine monarchs were all very terrifying. Even someone as strong as her and the goddess might not be able to suppress 18 divine monarchs even if they worked together. At the start, they didn't have a chance to win, but now, Lin Tian actually won with a single punch. Lin Tian smiled modestly, then tilted his head and looked at a celestial mountain thousands of feet away. Want to run after seeing this? As his words fell, he raised his hand and condensed the sword of heaven and earth with the three-dimensional power of heaven and earth. He slashed it straight in that direction. With a clang, the sword light slashed out with the sword of heaven and earth was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had reached that place. Crack! The void split open, and a figure surrounded by demonic light appeared. It was the demon ancestor. The goddess and the All-Heaven's Holy Maiden were both shocked. The demon ancestor had been spying on them, and they had not sensed it at all. Thousands of feet away, the demon ancestor was shocked. He had been here for a long time and used a special secret technique to hide in the void. Even an expert like the goddess could not detect him, and even the divine lords of the god's spirit lineage could not detect him. He had been spying on the battle and wanted to take the opportunity to suppress Lin Tian, but he did not expect that the 18 divine lords of the god's spirit lineage would all be killed by Lin Tian in the end. He was shocked because of this. After the battle began, he was prepared to leave, but he never expected that Lin Tian would actually notice him. He had used a special technique to hide there. Even the Supremes of heaven and earth could not detect him, so how could Lin Tian discover him? How did he do it? Lin Tian could naturally see what the demon ancestor was thinking. He said coldly, "Do you think my Rinnegan is just for show?" Although the path of reincarnation did not have a great advantage in battle before it was fully cultivated, it had many wonderful uses. Now, he had control over 80% of his reincarnation. Under such circumstances, his Rinnegan had undoubtedly become stronger. He could truly see through everything. How could the demon ancestor hide under his Rinnegan now? It was impossible. When the demon ancestor had just arrived, he had already discovered him. It was just that he had not paid attention to the demon ancestor during the battle with the 18 divine lords. Now that the 18 divine lords had been killed, it was the demon ancestor's turn. Reincarnation! The demon ancestor's face was gloomy. He looked at Lin Tian's Rinnegan, gritted his teeth, and left the vast demonic light that filled the sky. Now, Lin Tian was very strange. In addition, the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens were stronger than him. Moreover, he had been severely injured by the goddess. Naturally, he did not dare to face Lin Tian, the goddess, and the saintesses of all heavens head-on. He could only escape. Lin Tianling snorted. He used the reincarnation steps and stopped the demon ancestor in an instant. The sword of heaven and earth in his hand slashed down mercilessly. In a head-on battle, I can't deal with the Supremes of the lineage of divine spirits, but it is enough to deal with you now, he said coldly. Everyone in the lineage of divine spirits had a pure divine body, and their combat power was terrifying. With his current strength, it would be difficult for him to win if he faced the Supremes of the lineage of divine spirits head-on without the help of others. However, he could definitely deal with the demon ancestor, who was at the bottom of the Supremes of heaven and earth, and had been severely injured by the goddess not long ago. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing, and the sword of heaven and earth shook, forcing the demon ancestor to retreat. Junior, don't be too arrogant. Without the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens, I can kill you with one finger, the demon ancestor said coldly. He had seen Lin Tian's order superpower before and knew how strange and terrifying Lin Tian's order superpower was. However, previously, the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens had faced the 18 divine emperors of the lineage of divine spirits head-on for 3 days. Lin Tian had spent 3 days preparing a killing technique to succeed. If the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens weren't there, he wouldn't have cared about Lin Tian at all. He thought he could suppress Lin Tian with just a lift of his hand. Is that so? Why don't you give it a try? Lin Tianling said coldly. As his words fell, lightning intertwined beside him, and golden patterns appeared. Blazing flames appeared, and astral winds were rampant. Immortal Yin lingered, and blazing yang appeared. The ground trembled in the next moment, and special immortal vines rushed up against the sky. Blue light appeared in the void, and strands jumped. Such a scene made the demon ancestor tremble involuntarily, and his pupils suddenly shrank. You! At the same time, the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens were also moved. 9 heavens divine lightning, 9 heavens golden pattern, 9 heavens immortal wood, 9 heavens earth, 9 heavens sacred wind, 9 heavens burning flame, 9 heavens immortal Yin, 9 heavens blazing yang, 9 heavens returning to void. He's mastered all of them. When did this happen? The saintesses of all heavens' eyes flickered. After a pause, they seemed to recall something. It's when he unsealed all of his soul roots? At that time Previously, when Lin Tian unsealed the last layer of seal on his soul roots, the 9-dimensional laws of the 9th dimension automatically manifested. Now that she thought about it, Lin Tian must have mastered the other 8 types of 9th dimension laws except for the 9 heavens divine lightning at that time. The goddess' eyes shone brightly, and she was both surprised and delighted. She had spent hundreds of thousands of years to master one of the 9-dimensional laws of the 9th dimension. Now, Her child had mastered all 9 types of ninth dimension laws after ascending to the 9th dimension not long ago. She was very happy. The demon ancestor gritted his teeth in shock and fear. Since ancient times, only the celestial emperor and the human king had mastered all of the 9th dimension laws of the 9th dimension. Now, Lin Tian had done it too. At this moment, looking at Lin Tian, he vaguely saw the shadows of the celestial emperor and the human king behind Lin Tian. For a moment, his divine soul trembled, and he immediately fled again, not daring to stop in the slightest. With a whoosh, a vast demonic light filled the sky. He directly tore open the black hole in the void, stepped into it, and disappeared. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and his Rinnegan saw through everything. 1. Beside him, 9 types of 9th dimension laws leaped and gathered toward the sword of heaven and earth in his hand. Then, 8 types of 8th dimension laws of the 8th dimension manifested, 7 types of 7th dimension laws of the 7th dimension appeared, 6 types of 6th dimension laws of the 6th dimension intertwined, 5 types of 5th dimension laws of the 5th dimension, and 4 types of 4th dimension laws of the 4th dimension appeared together and gathered toward the sword of heaven and earth. In an instant, an extremely terrifying sword momentum spread out from the sword of heaven and earth in his hand, suppressing the world. Die! Saying this word coldly, he raised his hand. His Rinnegan saw through everything, and he gently but powerfully slashed down with the sword. In an instant, the boundless void collapsed, and the demon ancestor was forcibly shaken out of the void. His eyes were wide open, and then he shattered with a puff, exploding under the sword. Even his divine soul was destroyed. The place became completely silent for a moment. The goddess's beauty shocked the world. At this moment, she couldn't help but widen her beautiful eyes, and then immediately revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Great! She walked over and hugged Lin Tian, very happy. Although the demon ancestor had been severely injured by her before, he was still a supreme of heaven and earth. But now, he was actually killed by Lin Tian with a single sword. This made her, as his mother, very proud. Little Ten, you're amazing! The All-Heavens goddess also spoke. Lin Tian smiled modestly, not proud at all. Chapter 2466. His soul root was completely unsealed, and his cultivation had reached the tribulation realm. Now, Lin Tian felt that he had a lot of inspiration for his understanding of reincarnation. At this moment, he was ready to go into seclusion for a short period of time to comprehend and deepen his understanding of reincarnation. The goddess and saintess of all heavens naturally agreed to this. The lineage of divine spirits was terrifying. Now, to defeat this lineage and the 10 ancestral gods, Lin Tian could only rely on his reincarnation. Immediately, the 3 of them left this place. Not long after, they stepped into a relatively hidden mountain range. Lin Tian found a mountain cave. With the goddess and saintess of all heavens guarding him, he immediately began to comprehend. Buzz! Strands of light intertwined on the surface of his body. The reincarnation light lingered, sacred, vast, and majestic. As time passed, this reincarnation light became thicker and thicker. In the blink of an eye, a full 3 months passed. 3 months later, the essence, energy, and spirit outside his body became extremely strong. His cultivation had reached the peak of tribulation realm from the middle stage. He temporarily moved hundreds of thousands of miles away, passed a new round of heavenly punishment, and returned to his previous place to comprehend reincarnation again. Then, in the blink of an eye, another 2 months passed. The reincarnation light outside his body became extremely thick. On this day, he had mastered 90% of reincarnation. It was also at this moment that his consciousness abruptly appeared in a vast and hazy large world. Within it, the ground was covered in yellow sand at times, a sea of blood surged at times, a myriad of demons howled at times, and the sky trembled at times. All sorts of scenes were constantly changing. Gradually, an enormous millstone appeared in this vast and hazy large world, and it slowly revolved above the sky. It seemed to have existed before heaven and earth, and seemed to support the operation of heaven and earth. An ancient aura rushed to his face. In an instant, Lin Tian's mind buzzed. A confused and obscure feeling appeared in his heart. It seemed to be something above the will of heaven and earth, causing his sea of consciousness to boil and his spirit to tremble. In the hazy world, the huge millstone rotated, and heavenly music echoed in his ears. It was like a heavenly song. It was like a song that buried the heavens. In the next moment, the hazy world gradually blurred and dissipated. His consciousness returned to his body, and he suddenly opened his eyes. Cold sweat dripped from his forehead. Even his body couldn't help but tremble slightly. His spirit and body were ice cold. What happened? The divine ladies and saintesses were moved and came to greet him. Lin Tian took a deep breath and paused for a moment before replying. I'm fine. Are you really all right? The goddess frowned. Just now, Lin Tian's reaction was a little strange. The All-Heaven saintesses also looked at Lin Tian. I really didn't. I'm fine. Lin Tian now. His control of reincarnation had reached 90%, and he was only 10% away from mastery. It was also at this stage that a great technique gradually appeared in his heart. It was a technique that existed before the world, and he finally understood why the mastery of reincarnation was said to be invincible. Just thinking about that great technique made him tremble involuntarily, and his soul went numb. Once that level of technique was unleashed, it could truly change the heavens and the earth. It would only take a single thought to obliterate the heavens and the earth. However, he had only mastered 90% of the reincarnation cycle, so he could not use the Grandmaster technique. He had to master the reincarnation cycle to the highest level. Oh, it's good that you're fine. The goddess listened to his words and saw his expression. Although she was still a bit confused, she didn't ask. Coming out now? The All-Heaven saintesses asked. Lin Tian thought for a moment and said, I want to break through to the 9th dimensional realm first. Now, his cultivation had reached the peak of the tribulation realm, and he was only a small step away from the 9th dimensional realm. Once he stepped into the 9th dimensional realm, his battle strength would increase significantly. Therefore, he wanted to raise his cultivation to the 9th dimensional realm first. The goddess and All-Heaven saintesses naturally agreed to this. They already knew about Lin Tian's many trump cards and the existence of the three-dimensional world in Lin Tian's body. At this stage, once Lin Tian's cultivation reached the 9th dimensional realm, with a completely unsealed soul root, coupled with the three-dimensional world energy in Lin Tian's body, his battle strength would most likely not be inferior to theirs. After that, he would be able to kill the ordinary heaven and earth supreme divine lords of the Divine Spirit clan. Therefore, it was naturally the right choice to let Lin Tian step into the 9th dimensional realm first. Immediately, the two of them stood guard for Lin Tian, and Lin Tian continued to stay in this place and cultivate in seclusion. As the Reincarnation Heart Sutra circulated, strands of 9-colored holy light intertwined from the surface of his body and began to gradually grow stronger. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed. 3 months later, on this day, a thunderous roar came from the sky, and a thunderous vortex opened. After 3 months of seclusion and wholeheartedly focused on cultivation, he stepped into the 9th dimensional realm on this day. The soul root has been completely unsealed, this cultivation speed, the All-Heaven saintesses exclaimed. In less than a year, relying on his own cultivation and without the help of any heavenly treasures, he had reached the 9th dimensional realm from the middle of the tribulation realm. This speed was far superior to that of the human king and the celestial emperor of the past. There was a qualitative difference. Boom! Thunder rumbled, exploding in the sky. Within the thunderous vortex, black lightning was rampant, like a destructive dragon. It was horrifying. A destructive aura came down from the sky. This time, Lin Tian did not leave this place. After the goddess and All-Heaven saintesses retreated a sufficient distance, he directly began to undergo the 9th dimensional tribulation here. Boom! The main lightning punishment was immediately suppressed. He took out the reincarnation sword. As he underwent the tribulation, the lightning punishment struck down one after another. It did not end until half a day later. 7 colored auspicious clouds condensed. He reformed the reincarnation sword and used the power of the auspicious clouds to stabilize the 9th-dimensional realm. Soon, a quarter of an hour passed, and the auspicious clouds dissipated. He raised his hand and reassembled the reincarnation sword. After that, he used his divine sense to examine his body. He immediately felt his current strength. It was far from what he could compare to when he was in the tribulation realm. He had undergone a huge qualitative change. The 3-dimensional world in his body had become stronger than before. Good! He muttered to himself. At this time, his cultivation had reached the 9th-dimensional realm. Coupled with the completely unsealed soul root and the 3-dimensional world in his body, he was not afraid even if he faced an ordinary divine sovereign of the God Spirit clan. He could fight head-on and even kill them. Mother Master! He opened his mouth and looked at the goddess and all heaven's saintesses in the distance. He was about to step over, but in the next moment, his eyes suddenly focused. He held the reincarnation sword, and with a backhand slash, intertwining a large number of reincarnation sword force and spreading it into the distance. The sword hummed, and in the blink of an eye, it streaked across thousands of feet and broke through the void, shaking 3 figures out of the void. Young man, don't move! We are on the same side. The 3 of them were surrounded by an extremely powerful aura. One of them spoke. Lin Tian looked at the 3 of them and frowned slightly. Then, he looked at the goddess and all heaven's saintesses. Nihility, divine flame, Luo Long. In the distance, the goddess and all heaven's saintesses were moved. The 3 of them were Supremacy Nihility, Divine Flame Ancestor, and Supreme Luo Long. They were all supreme beings of the 9th dimension. What's the matter? The goddess said with a calm expression. She did not have a good impression of the 3 of them. Back then, it was these 3, the demon ancestor, and another supreme of heaven and earth who had died when the God Spirit clan stepped out. The 5 of them ignored the warning of the mighty sage from countless years ago, and opened the door from the 9th dimension to the 10 divine realms without permission, causing the God Spirit clan to step out and wreak havoc in the 9th dimension. It could be said that the war that had lasted for thousands of years was caused by these few people. Beside her, the All Heaven's saintesses had an indifferent expression. They did not have a good impression of the 3 of them either. The 2 of you, it was indeed our fault in the past. We have realized it from the beginning. However, it has already happened, and we can't do anything about it. Among the 3 of them, Supreme Luo Long smiled apologetically. He looked at the goddess and all heaven's saintesses and said, Now that the God Spirit clan has stepped out, as the current strongest force in the 9th dimension, I think we should work together to fight. Yes, we have deeply realized our mistake back then, and now we want to make up for it. Divine Flame Ancestor also smiled apologetically and said, The Heavenly Emperor and Human King have restrained the 10 ancestral gods in the 10 divine realms and are doing their best to buy time for us to fight. Now we should work together to deal with the God Spirit clan. With the strength of the 5 of us and some strategies, we can take down the God Spirit clan one by one. We might have a chance to eradicate them completely. That's right, goddess. You are the strongest among the 5 of us. With you as a leader, we really have a chance of winning. Sovereign Void smiled apologetically and said, Back then, we opened the door to the 10 divine realms without permission because we wanted to become stronger. We didn't expect the warning to be true. He sighed and said, We want to atone for our sins. We can only be at ease after defeating all the gods who have stepped into the 9th dimension. Looking at the goddess and all heaven's saintesses, the 3 of them smiled apologetically and the guilt on their faces deepened. The goddess and all heaven's saintesses looked at each other and narrowed their eyes. Although he didn't have a good impression of the 3 of them, the 5 of them were indeed the strongest force in the 9th dimension. In the battle against the Divine Spirit faction, it was indeed better for the 5 of them to work together than to fight separately. Seniors, look over here. Lin Tian suddenly spoke. Sovereign Void, Divine Flame Ancestor, and Supreme Luo Long subconsciously looked in Lin Tian's direction when they heard him. In an instant, their gazes met Lin Tian's Rinnegan, and they trembled. You! The three of them stiffened as they met Lin Tian's Rinnegan. Their eyes suddenly became hazy. Strands of reincarnation light wove around Lin Tian's body as he opened his right eye and used a special soul-searching technique. After learning that these people had opened the 10 divine realms, he was very worried about them and used 90% of his reincarnation power to search their souls. This was a soul-searching technique that was even more powerful than the purgatory of reincarnation and had an astonishing suppressive power. When using this technique, others wouldn't even be able to sense that their memories were being read. In the blink of an eye, 7 breaths passed. Sovereign Void, Divine Flame Ancestor, and Supreme Luo Long's bodies trembled slightly as they broke free from Lin Tian's soul-searching technique. They were shocked and angry, and their eyes were filled with shock. Rinnegan! You control reincarnation? Chapter 2467. Unable to find anything to say, he could only apologize. Sorry. Up until now, the dragon owed a total of 3 chapters, and the Dragon Queen took the time to make up for it. Once again, please forgive me. Chapter 2468. The sharp sword radiance swept out and enveloped Honorable Void, the Divine Flame Ancestor, and Supreme Luo Long. The three of them were shocked and retreated at the same time to avoid the sword. Junior! What are you doing? How dare you? The three of them looked at Lin Tian and shouted angrily. Lin Tian had suddenly attacked them. The goddess and saintess looked at Lin Tian. They knew that Lin Tian wouldn't attack them for no reason. Lin Tian didn't say anything and directly pulled out a mental imprint. It was a memory that he had forcibly searched through with his Rinnegan. It was a conversation between the three of them and a few Sir Gods. They were going out to look for the goddess and the saintess of all heavens, pretending to form an alliance with the goddess and the saintess of all heavens. They were going to secretly suppress the two when they were unprepared and bring them to the lineage of God's spirits. After that, they could become members of the lineage of God's spirits. With the help of the lineage of God's spirits, they could turn into pure godly bodies. The expressions of the Venerable Void, the Divine Flame Ancestor, and Supreme Luo Long changed when they saw this. You! The three of them looked at Lin Tian in shock and anger. How did Lin Tian know about this? This was their top secret. The Divine Lady and All Heaven's Saintess were enraged, their eyes cold. The demon ancestor was in front of us, and now you're behind us. You're all bastards! The goddess' voice was cold. In the sky, rolling thunder immediately enveloped the three of them. Countless years ago, they ignored the warning of the mighty figures in the 9th dimension of heaven and opened the door to the 10 divine realms without permission, causing the lineage of gods to step out of the 10 divine realms. Countless creatures in the 9th dimension of heaven suffered, and the world below was facing the threat of destruction at any time. Now, they were plotting against them like the demon ancestor, and wanted to join the lineage of gods. Die! A cold word came out of her mouth, bringing with it an undisguised killing intent. Boundless lightning instantly pressed down. Goddess, stop! Ah! Screams were heard immediately. The 9 heavens' divine lightning was mighty, and in an instant, the 3 supremes were shattered. Even their divine souls were annihilated. Death is not to be regretted, the goddess said coldly. Lin Tian couldn't help but widen her eyes. Her extremely beautiful mother was truly enraged this time. Her battle prowess was truly terrifying. She actually managed to kill the Void Sovereign, Divine Flame Ancestor, and Supreme Luo Long in an instant. Now that he had comprehended the 9th level of reincarnation and his cultivation had reached the 9th dimensional realm, he wanted to use these 3 people to test his combat prowess. But in the end, he didn't even have the chance to do so. The 3 of them were instantly killed. Very powerful indeed. The goddesses looked at the goddess and then at Lin Tian. This time, it's all thanks to Little Ten again, Otherwise, we would have been fooled. Previously, I really did think that the 5 of us would join hands to suppress the God's Spirit clan," she said. "Is that the new ability of Rinnegan? Is it the ability to forcibly search their spiritual seas just now?" Just now, the Venerable Void, the Divine Flame Ancestor, and Supreme Luolong were all absent-minded for about 7 breaths. After that, Lin Tian learned their secret, which could only be learned through soul-searching. She guessed that at that time, Lin Tian used the special ability of the Rinnegan to forcefully search the spiritual seas of the 3 Supremes, and then found out about that matter. Lin Tian nodded and replied, "Yes, mistress." The anger in the goddess' eyes dissipated, replaced by a smile. She hugged Lin Tian again and said, "You're indeed my child. You're amazing!" Lin Tian chuckled. Just as she was about to say something, a beam of light suddenly rushed over from afar and landed in front of the goddess. The holy light flashed slightly and then disappeared in a flash. Immediately, the goddess' expression changed, and a hint of anxiety appeared in her eyes. "Let's go to the Cave of Isolation." Hearing this, the goddesses were also moved. Let's go!" The goddess was a little anxious. She said something to Lin Tian now, and the 3 of them immediately headed to the northern area of this place. This made Lin Tian suspicious. After meeting her mother, this was the first time she had seen her mother so anxious. She paused and asked, "Mother, what happened? What's the Cave of Isolation?" "That's the place where an elder who lived much longer than your father, mother, me, and your master lives in seclusion. People call him Elder Wu. The place where he lives in seclusion is called the Cave of Isolation." The goddess was a little anxious. Beside her, the goddesses helped to explain. "Back then, your mother and father were both indebted to that elder. After the lineage of God stepped out, due to some special reasons, that elder stayed in the Cave of Isolation and did not participate in the battle. Your mother set up many restrictions there to prevent the lineage of gods from discovering it. But now..." Lin Tian's expression changed when he heard this. He lived much longer than his parents, master, and mistress? Moreover, his parents were indebted to that elder? In an instant, he understood why his mother was so anxious. It seemed that the restrictions that his mother had left in the Cave of Isolation were about to be broken. The beam of light just now should have been a distress signal from the Cave of Isolation. Immediately, his heart constricted slightly, and his expression became heavy and worried. After all, that elder had been indebted to his father and mother. In other words, his entire family was indebted to that elder. He, the goddess, and the goddesses moved extremely quickly. The goddess tore open several spatial portals and traveled through the 9th dimension with her pinnacle strength. Soon, they arrived in front of an uninhabited desert and stepped straight into the center of the desert. Looking around, the space in the middle of the desert was completely broken, like glass that had been shattered. There were many large spatial cracks, and one could see that there seemed to be a small world inside. There were all kinds of ancient trees and immortal mountains intertwined, but most of them were broken. There was a very shocking fluctuation of saint energy coming from the depths, and the aura of gods was very strong. The goddess did not say anything and rushed in front. Lin Tian and the goddesses of the heavens followed closely behind. Soon, a valley appeared in front of them in the small world. There were many restrictions outside, and most of them were broken. An elder stood in the valley. His hair and beard were white, and his face was ruddy. His expression was very serious, and he cooperated with the many restrictions to resist the attacks of the 7 figures outside the restrictions. The 7 of them were surrounded by a shocking aura. They were all divine lords of the lineage of gods. Boom! Thunder rumbled, and the 9th heaven divine thunder was mighty. The goddess was immediately moved, and endless thunder came crashing down. The 7 divine lords were all enveloped in it. Lin Tian knew immediately that this elder was Elder Wu, who had helped his parents. He attacked together, and the 9th heaven divine thunder law appeared, and together with the goddess 9th heaven divine thunder law, attacked the 7 people. At the same time, the goddesses of the heavens also attacked together. The 9th heaven divine wind law was mighty, and it surged toward the 7 people. The 7 divine lords were moved. They immediately slashed out a large amount of divine light and dodged at the same time, retreating hundreds of feet away. "Who?" one of them said coldly. At the same time, within the restriction, Elder Wui's expression changed, and his serious expression relaxed. "Senior, are you okay?" The goddess led the goddesses of the heavens and Lin Tian, crossed the restriction in an instant, and appeared in the valley. She was the one who set up the restriction, so she could naturally pass through it at will. "Senior, long time no see." The goddesses of the heavens also spoke. Elder Wui's cultivation was at the 9th dimensional realm. He looked at the goddess and the goddesses of the heavens and said apologetically, "Qianni Huan Yu, I have troubled you." The goddess shook her head. "Senior, you are too polite. How can this be trouble?" The goddesses of the heavens also spoke. They were very respectful to this 9th dimensional realm elder. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. Only now did he know the real names of his mother and master's wife, Qianni and Huan Yu. "Goddess! Goddesses of the heavens!" A cold voice rang out. Outside the valley, outside the restriction, one of the 7 divine lords of the god spirit race spoke. He looked coldly at the goddess and the goddesses of the heavens. Another person looked at the goddess and said coldly, "I felt your aura in the restriction here before. It is indeed related to you." There were still some restrictions outside the valley. The goddess ignored the 7 people and looked deeper into the valley. She asked Elder Wei, "The little girl was not affected, right?" "She's fine. The restriction you left behind has not been completely broken, and the little girl was not affected or disturbed." Elder Wei smiled. His expression was very gentle, like an old grandfather leading the family. "That's good." The goddess was completely relieved. She let out a long sigh of relief. After a pause, she pulled Lin Tian over from the side and introduced Lin Tian to Elder Wei. Then, she introduced Lin Tian to Elder Wei. "Greetings, Senior." Lin Tian bowed deeply with a respectful expression. Although it was the first time they met, this old man was someone his father, mother, master's wife, and master respected very much. Elder Wei was moved. His gaze fell on Lin Tian. He reached out and helped Lin Tian up. His eyes were filled with obvious shock. "You and little Tian's child? When did this happen?" The old man was shocked. He had never heard of this before. "Back then, it happened suddenly. Due to some special reasons, we sent him to the lower world. It wasn't until recently that he ascended to the 9th dimension from the lower world." The goddess explained. "I see." The old man understood. He pulled Lin Tian as if he was looking at his own grandson. His eyes were very bright. Good child, good child." Outside the restriction, the 7 divine lords of the god spirit race's faces darkened. The goddess ignored them. The goddesses of the heavens, Elder Wei, and Lin Tian also ignored them. "Disrespectful to the gods. A bunch of traitors," one of them said coldly. A large amount of killing light interweaved and slashed toward the restriction outside the valley. The restriction shone brightly, but the light gradually dimmed. It was obvious that it would be broken soon. The goddess tilted her head and looked at the 7 people. Her eyes were cold. The 9th heaven divine lightning interweaved around her body as she walked out of the restriction. "Mother, let me do it!" At this moment, Lin Tian pulled her. The goddess's eyes moved slightly. "You do it? Can you do it?" The saintesses of the heavens were also moved. Elder Wui's expression changed slightly. "Little Lin, don't be rash." Chapter 2469. "Senior, it's fine. I know what I'm doing," Lin Tian said to Old Man Wei, then looked at the goddess. The goddess paused for a moment, then pointed a finger. A beam of light entered Lin Tian's forehead. It was the method to pass through the restriction. Lin Tian nodded and looked at the 7 divine lords outside the restriction. In the blink of an eye, he stepped out of the restriction. The 7 divine lords of the divine spirit clan all had powerful auras. They looked at Lin Tian, their eyes flashing. That man's descendant, one of them said, his voice cold. Take him down! Just now, the 7 divine lords had heard the goddess's words and learned that Lin Tian was the descendant of the celestial emperor and the goddess. Immediately, they revealed extremely cold expressions. Outside of the 10 divine realms, the one they hated the most was the celestial emperor. With a rumble, a majestic Saint Aura roared. One of them immediately made a move, grabbing at Lin Tian. Foolish mortal! The person said coldly. A mere 9th-dimensional cultivator dared to fight against divine spirits at the level of heaven and earth supremes, and even wanted to fight against 7 of them alone. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. His eyes instantly changed. The eye of destiny and the eye of reincarnation opened at the same time. The reincarnation forging divine art, which could increase one's combat power by 20 times, was activated immediately. Then, in the next moment, he disappeared from the spot. He activated the teleportation ability of the Eye of Destiny, and instantly moved behind the divine spirit who attacked him. He raised his right hand, and the light of reincarnation and destiny intertwined at the tip of his fist. He performed the reincarnation fist. With a boom, the powerful punch was extremely fast. The divine spirit who attacked him had no time to dodge. The punch landed firmly on his head. Poof! Blood splattered as the divine spirit's head exploded. White brain matter splattered all over the void. At the same time, Lin Tian opened his fist, and the light of reincarnation intertwined between his fingers. He grabbed the divine spirit and suppressed it. This attack was completed in an instant. Everyone's expression instantly changed. Lin Tian, who was in the 9th-dimensional realm, had shattered a heaven and earth sovereign in an instant and suppressed his spirit body. Moreover, there was another thing that made the few Sir Gods and Old Man Wu of God's spirit lineage shrink their pupils. Rinnegan? Reincarnation! The deities and inaction Old Man's gazes all landed on Lin Tian's Rinnegan and the reincarnation light. Lin Tian actually controlled the cycle of reincarnation. Boom! The divine sovereign whose divine soul had been suppressed by Lin Tian burst forth with a monstrous soul light as he tried to break free. However, it was useless. Golden runes of the 9 heavens intertwined around Lin Tian, causing his soul to tremble violently, and he let out a muffled groan. Mortal seed, let go! The eyes of the 6 Sir Gods darkened as they spoke coldly. They were too surprised. In this vast world, there was actually someone who could control the cycle of reincarnation. With the cultivation of the 9th-dimensional realm, he had suppressed one of them in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's eyes were cold as he faced the 6 without saying anything. The reincarnation light and the light of providence intertwined, and the golden runes of the 9 heavens became denser. The other 8-dimensional laws also intertwined at the same time, completely enveloping the suppressed divine sovereign's divine soul and then entering his body in the next moment. Pfft! With a soft sound, the divine sovereign's divine soul was immediately shattered. In the valley, Old Man Wu's eyes couldn't help but fluctuate. Lin Tian actually controlled all the 9th-dimensional laws and the cycle of reincarnation. A heaven and earth sovereign level Sir God was killed just like that with the cultivation of the 9th-dimensional realm. As expected of the descendant of Yu and Little Tian. Such strength is the same as Little Tian back then, sweeping through everything. The old man sighed. The goddess chuckled. Her child was praised by someone she respected, so she was naturally very happy. She paused for a moment and said to the old man, "His master is the human king." The old man's expression changed slightly. He looked at the goddess, and then looked at the saintess beside her. He couldn't help but laugh. "The father is the emperor, and the master is the king. Good, good." Outside the valley, outside the restriction, the 6 Sir Gods of the God Spirit clan were furious because one of their clansmen had been killed. Now that they heard the goddess's words and learned that Lin Tian was the disciple of the human king, they became even more shocked and furious, and the coldness in their eyes became even more intense. "Kill him!" One of them gritted his teeth. The 2 simple words were especially heavy, and the coldness and killing intent were extremely strong. If there was one person in the God Spirit clan who hated the Celestial Emperor as much as they hated the Celestial Emperor, that person was undoubtedly the Human King. The Celestial Emperor and the Human King made them hate and fear them. Now that they saw that Lin Tian was the descendant of the Celestial Emperor and the disciple of the Human King, their hatred for the Celestial Emperor and the Human King was all transferred to Lin Tian, and killing intent was revealed. Boom! 6 terrifying holy auras immediately spread out, and the divine spiritual auras intertwined and pressed down on Lin Tian. A terrifying hurricane swept through the area, and it tore apart the void. Lin Tian naturally felt the shocking pressure, but he was not afraid at all. He used the reincarnation steps and moved forward instead of retreating. The Eye of Destiny's teleportation ability was used again, and he appeared behind one of the deities in a flash. Just like before, he punched towards the deity's head. Despicable thing! Don't think that a sneak attack like before will work, the deity said coldly, and he quickly turned his head. He gathered his divine spiritual power and turned it into a sword, which he slashed towards Lin Tian. However, in the next moment, Lin Tian's body disappeared again, and he used his teleportation ability again. In an instant, he appeared on the other side of the deity, making it difficult for the deity to dodge. The violent punch landed steadily on the deity's head. With a poof, a bloody light flashed. Lin Tian raised his hand and captured the deity's soul, suppressing it in his palm. Let go! A cold voice sounded, and the other 5 deities rushed forward at the same time. Lin Tian tilted his head, and the Eye of Reincarnation trembled slightly. This caused the 5 deities to tremble, and their vision became hazy. At this moment, an ear-piercing sword whistle sounded, and Lin Tian wielded the reincarnation sword technique. Together with the reincarnation light, the light of destiny, and the 9 types of 9th-dimensional laws, they enveloped the 5 deities in sword radiance. Poof, 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 poof. The 5 deities were penetrated by the sword radiance at the same time. Lin Tian suppressed the deity's soul of a Sir God with one hand, and the sword of 3-dimensional heaven and earth formed in his other hand. The sword aura was frightening, and it clanged loudly. With a poof, it penetrated the deity's soul that was suppressed. With a poof, the deity's soul was instantly shattered, and he was destroyed by the sword of 3-dimensional heaven and earth. At this moment, the other 5 Sir Gods who were affected by the Eye of Reincarnation regained their senses at the same time, and they were all shocked. Another Sir God from their lineage had been killed by Lin Tian. Human! One of the deities' voice was extremely cold, and his killing intent was bone-chilling. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and the sword of heaven and earth in his hand clanged loudly. I'll send you on your way. He only said these 5 words, and in the next moment, his combat power was fully unleashed. The power of 3-dimensional heaven and earth boiled, and the sword of heaven and earth condensed all the dimensional laws, enveloping the 5 deities in it at the same time. Boom! 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 The powerful saint energy was vast and mighty in this place, and in the blink of an eye, more than half an hour had passed. In an hour, blood kept splashing in the void, and one deity after another was killed by the sword. In the blink of an eye, there was only one deity left. This deity gritted his teeth, and he was shocked and furious. He was frightened by Lin Tian's combat power, and he wanted to leave. However, in the face of Lin Tian, who had summoned the 3-dimensional heaven and earth and had the Eye of Destiny, this deity couldn't escape at all. Even if he rushed into the void tunnel, it was useless. He was locked on by Lin Tian with the Eye of Reincarnation, and then killed with a sword with all his strength. For a moment, this place became extremely quiet. This is really... Old Man Wuwei's eyes kept fluctuating. With the cultivation of the 9th dimension, he killed 7 deities of heaven and earth in an hour. In his understanding, this kind of combat power was not even comparable to the Celestial Emperor and Human King of the same cultivation back then. Outside the valley, Lin Tian dispersed the sword of heaven and earth and stepped back into the valley. The battle with these 7 deities could be considered as a test of his current strongest combat power, and he was quite satisfied. With his current cultivation and the three-dimensional heaven and earth, it was not difficult to kill ordinary deities of heaven and earth. In fact, he could even kill a paragon godly monarch with his current cultivation and Rinnegan, an eye of destiny, if he caught his opponent off guard. Not bad, the goddess praised. Very strong. The All-Heaven's Saint smiled. Old Man Wu looked at Lin Tian and said with emotion, "The younger generation will surpass us in time." Lin Tian chuckled and stood quietly by the side. The goddess perfected the restriction here, and then looked at the old man. "Senior, let's go and see the little girl." Old Man Wu nodded and immediately led the goddess and the other two into the valley. Lin Tian followed at the side, slightly curious. There was a little girl here. Who was it? It seemed that his mother cared about her very much. Old Man Wu led the way and soon arrived at the depths of the valley. A sea of flowers appeared in front of them, and the fragrance assailed their nostrils. In the middle stood a block of ice about 10 feet tall, and a little girl in a purple dress was sealed in it. The little girl was about 6 years old, and she was very cute. Lin Tian was slightly moved. Was this the little girl his mother mentioned? She looked much prettier than Ruoxian of the same age. If she grew up, she would probably be comparable to Wu Yi. Little Tianyin. The goddess walked closer and looked at the little girl with some heartache. When will it be resolved? It depends on the will of the heavens. Old Man Wu sighed. I have been working hard all these years, but unfortunately, there is still no way. The All-Heaven Saint did not speak and sighed slightly. Lin Tian tugged at the corner of the All-Heaven Saint's clothes and asked softly, Mistress, what's the situation here? This scene piqued his curiosity. Chapter 2470. Special energy? Even Master and Father can't solve it? Lin Tian was shocked. As for how strong his Master and Father were, although he had never seen it with his own eyes, he knew clearly from the rumors. Even the terrifying lineage of gods was extremely fearful. Only the 10 ancestral gods could defeat the 2 of them. However, his Master and Father, who were so powerful, couldn't solve the special energy in the little girl's body? The All-Heaven Saintess nodded and said, The reason why Senior Wu hasn't left this place is because he has been guarding little Tianyin. Little Tianyin can't leave this place and must be guarded by someone. At the same time, he is also working hard to find a way to solve the special energy in little Tianyin's body. After all, little Tianyin can't be sealed in this sky ice forever. Little Tianyin used to have a very good relationship with your mother, even better than her biological mother. Since she was 3 years old, she often pestered your mother to play. She said. Lin Tian immediately understood. No wonder his mother cared so much about this little girl. It turned out that they used to have such a good relationship. Special energy. He muttered to himself and paused. Let me see. As his voice fell, strands of reincarnation Tao patterns intertwined in his right eye. The next moment, he opened his reincarnation eye and looked at little Tianyin in the sky ice. He saw that there was a blood-colored energy in little Tianyin's body that enveloped the entire life origin. Part of it had seeped into the life origin, while the other part was still. Obviously, the special heavenly momentum and the eternal sky ice here had temporarily restricted this energy. This energy seems to be... He frowned. The goddess, the All-Heaven Saintess, and Old Man Wu looked at his reincarnation eye and obviously knew that he had seen that kind of energy. Your father said before that it's an energy that transcends yin and yang, the 5 elements, and the Tao. Ordinary means can't deal with it, and can only temporarily freeze it. The goddess sighed. Lin Tian was moved. When he saw this special energy with his reincarnation eye, he felt that it was very special and didn't belong to any energy in the known category. It seemed to have transcended the primordial yin and yang, the 5 elements, and all the Tao. However, even so, there were strands of light intertwining in his eyes. Well, although it's just a feeling, I feel that I can obliterate this energy, he said. The goddess, Old Man Wu, and Saintess all changed their expressions. Shaolin, really? Old Man Wu was pleasantly surprised. This special energy was something that even the celestial emperors and human kings found difficult to solve. How could Lin Tian have a solution? Really? Goddess also asked. The All-Heaven Saintesses also looked at Lin Tian in surprise. Sure. Lin Tian nodded. As he spoke, he walked in front of the heavenly ice that sealed little Tianyin. He paused for a moment, and took a deep breath. Strands of reincarnation light intertwined from his body. Together with the Rinnegan, they surged into little Tianyin's body. This was no ordinary reincarnation light, but his reincarnation origin. With the eye of Samsara, he could see the special energy in the other party's body. Instinctively, he felt that his samsara origin should be able to destroy it. He used his reincarnation eye to observe the special energy in little Tianyin's body. Then, he used his reincarnation origin to suppress this special energy. Wisps of reincarnation origin continuously surged out from within his body and pressed down on the special energy within little Tianyin's body. The moment they made contact, the special energy vibrated and seemed to be resisting. However, it quickly began to be defeated and destroyed. It works, Lin Tian now said. Indeed, it was as he had guessed. His reincarnation origin could absolutely suppress and obliterate this special energy. He immediately took out more reincarnation origin, and wisps of it surged into little Tianyin's body. This caused the special energy entangling her life origin to be constantly destroyed. Moreover, it also shattered the special energy that had entered her life origin. In the blink of an eye, an hour had passed. In an hour, he had taken out a lot of reincarnation origin and finally completely destroyed the special energy in little Tianyin's body. Then, he retrieved all the reincarnation origin. His reincarnation origin had destroyed the special energy in little Tianyin's body, but it did not dissipate. It's done, he said. It's done? Old Man Wu was a little surprised. Even the goddess and the All-Heaven Saintesses were no exception. They immediately probed with their divine consciousness, and discovered that the special energy in little Tianyin's life origin had completely disappeared. They could no longer detect it. It's really done! The three of them were surprised and pleasantly surprised, especially Old Man Wu, whose eyes were filled with excitement. It was also at this time that little Tianyin's eyelids twitched a few times in the heavenly ice, and her eyes opened. It was a pair of exceptionally beautiful sapphire-like pupils. Her eyes were a little hazy, but they soon became bright. Tianyin! Old Man Wu was pleasantly surprised, and so were the goddess and the All-Heaven Saintesses. The goddess waved her hand and directly broke the heavenly ice, bringing little Tianyin out. Little one, long time no see. After breaking the heavenly ice and bringing out little Tianyin, the goddess was very happy. Little Tianyin had been sealed for too long. Little Tianyin was 6 years old when she was sealed. Now that she was being carried by the goddess, she did not look sad at all. Her sapphire-like big eyes were very clear. She wrapped her little arms around the goddess's neck and appeared very happy. Xianyi's mother! Lin Tian immediately widened his eyes. Xianyi's mother? What's going on? However, he was shocked for a moment, but the next moment, he felt relieved. He recalled what the All-Heaven Saintesses had said to him before. When Tianyin was 3 years old, she had a very good relationship with her mother, even better than her biological mother. She would often stick to her mother. Therefore, this form of address was just a form of intimacy, which was very normal. Tianyin! Old Man Wu was very excited. He took little Tianyin from the goddess's hands, and tears involuntarily appeared in his eyes. This was his biological granddaughter, who had been sealed here since she was 6 years old. She could not move or speak, and completely relied on the energy of heaven and earth to sustain her life. Now that she could finally speak and move again, how could he not be excited? Grandpa, don't cry. Little Tianyin was only 6 years old when she was sealed in the heavenly ice, and she had not grown up. Now, she was only 6 years old, but she was very mature. She stretched out her little hand and carefully and gently wiped the tears from Old Man Wu's eyes. You're still as obedient as before. The All-Heaven Saintess smiled. After so many years, little Tianyin had recovered. She was naturally very happy. And you? Little Tianyin looked at the All-Heaven Saintess and called out sweetly. Lin Tian watched from the side. This little girl was indeed very obedient, gentle, and natural. Tianyin, come! At this moment, old man Wu Wei pulled little Tianyin to Lin Tian and introduced Lin Tian to little Tianyin. This is Lin Tian. He was the one who wiped out the special energy in your body and saved you. He's the child of your mother, Xianyi. Little Tianyin looked at Lin Tian, and her sapphire-like eyes widened a little. They sparkled and were very beautiful. She walked to Lin Tian, took Lin Tian's right hand, and held it in her hands. She looked up at Lin Tian, and her big eyes were very clear, like a little wife. Thank you, husband. Lin Tian was stunned. Then, he trembled in fright and pulled his hand back. Husband? What's going on? He looked at the goddess, the All-Heaven Saintess, and old man Wu Wei. The All-Heaven Saintess covered her mouth and chuckled. Didn't I tell you before? Little Tianyin and your mother have a very good relationship. When they were playing together, she said that if Xianyi's child was a boy, she would marry him. Your mother also agreed, and your father didn't have any objections. She smiled and said, Well, how should I say this? Little Tianyin is your fiancé. Lin Tian stared at the goddess. There was such a thing? Yes, it's like this. The goddess didn't feel embarrassed at all. She smiled and said, She's indeed your fiancé. Lin Tian's eyes widened even more. That's what you said when you were playing. Is that true? He finally understood why Tianyin called his mother Xianyi's mother. It wasn't purely because they were close, but because she called her as a daughter-in-law. Although it was said when we were playing, it wasn't a joke. It was true. The goddess rubbed little Tianyin's head and said to Lin Tian now, Marry her after a while. Lin Tianji felt like his head was going to explode. Mother, don't mess around. She is only 6 years old. If Wu Yi and the others know that I married a 6-year-old girl, they'll beat me to death. You're wrong. Strictly speaking, little Tianyin is older than you. When she was born, you weren't there yet. It's just that she was sealed in the heavenly ice and didn't grow up. The goddess corrected him and said, Also, I heard from your master's wife that those girls are very gentle. Lin Tian was speechless. Being gentle was normal. Who would be gentle when they were angry? Ji Yu and Sushu might be better when they were angry, but he knew Wu Yi. She usually wasn't angry, but when she was angry, she could scare people to death. Little Ten, be good. This is something that was decided a long time ago. You have to marry her. Moreover, little Tianyin is a beauty. When she grows up, she won't lose out to Wu Yi. The All-Heaven Saintess said with a smile. Speaking of which, your master also arranged a marriage for you. That girl is called Yenye, right? She helped you a lot, so you have to marry her together. That girl won't have any objections. Wu Yi and the others won't have any objections either. Master's wife knows this. Or rather, they know that it was your master who arranged the marriage for you. In fact, they already treat her as one of them. They're always together. Lin Tian opened his mouth and felt like crying. Boom! Suddenly, an astonishing amount of saint energy vibrated, and the small world shook along with it. Large cracks appeared in many places, as if a super earthquake had occurred. Then, in the next moment, there was another boom and the entire large world began to collapse. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. The goddess and the others also frowned. Leave this place, the goddess said. Immediately, the goddess took little Tianyin and the group moved at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they left the small world and appeared in the desert outside. In front of them, a dozen figures stood together. Each of them was surrounded by an extremely astonishing aura. The person in the lead was a heaven and earth supreme. His aura was extremely shocking. The 10th Divine Lord! Chapter 2471. Lin Tian looked at the leader of the group of gods, and his eyes narrowed slightly. This person was also at the heaven and earth supreme level, a divine lord of the divine spirit lineage. However, in terms of aura, he was much stronger than the divine lords he had encountered before. The Saintess of all heavens said in a low voice, "In the divine spirit lineage, there are 10 extremely terrifying people under the 10 ancestral gods. They are called the First Divine Lord, Second Divine Lord, Third Divine Lord, Fourth Divine Lord, Fifth Divine Lord, Sixth Divine Lord, Seventh Divine Lord, Eighth Divine Lord, Ninth Divine Lord, and 10th Divine Lord," she said. "The First Divine Lord and Second Divine Lord died at the hands of your father and master. The other 8 are still here, and they are all extremely strong. They are far stronger than ordinary divine lords." As she said this, her expression was very solemn. Facing the 10th divine lord of the divine spirit lineage, she was no match for him. Even someone as strong as the Saintess was helpless. "Later, you and I will work together to hold him back. You take little Tian-Yin and Senior Wu and find a chance to escape." The Saintess transmitted her voice to Lin Tian. The god's spirit lineage was very strong. Not to mention the top 10 god lords, even if it was the top 50 god lords, she wouldn't be able to defeat them. However, it was still possible for her to barely resist them and buy time for Lin Tian, Old Man Wu, and little Tian-Yin to escape. She looked at the Saintess of all heavens. The Saintess of all heavens naturally understood and immediately stepped forward. Wisps of holy light surrounded her. "Together! I will try to use absolute counterattack to deal with him. Just like before." Lin Tian shook his head. Naturally, he was unwilling to leave. "This divine lord is qualitatively different from those you have encountered before. His level is too high. Your absolute counterattack won't be effective." The Saintess shook her head. "How do you know if you don't try?" Lin Tian andao. As soon as he finished speaking, he took the initiative to move. His Rinnegan and Eye of Destiny opened at the same time and condensed a 3-dimensional sword of heaven and earth. All the dimensional laws were fully manifested and pressed down on the other party in a mighty manner, enveloping the other gods as well. Rinnegan! Behind the 10th Divine Lord, the other deities were all in the 9th dimensional realm. At this moment, all of them were visibly moved. The 10th Divine Lord's eyes narrowed slightly, and they became even more profound. He didn't seem to have done anything, but a halo of light immediately intertwined. With a bang, Lin Tian was knocked away horizontally, and Lin Tian staggered back dozens of feet. The goddess and all heaven's saintesses immediately flashed over. Old Man Wu also appeared in front of Lin Tian with little Tian-Yin. "I'm fine." Lin Tian now. As he said this, his gaze turned solemn. The 10th divine monarch of the divine spirit clan was truly terrifying. Even with his fully activated soul root, 9th dimensional realm cultivation base, 90% reincarnation cycle, and the 3-dimensional world in his body, he was still no match for the 10th divine monarch. Seeing that Lin Tian was fine, the goddess said, "Don't be impulsive. This is not a head-on battle." Clang! The holy light clanged, and the sound of swords rang out. The 10th Divine Lord made his move, and the holy light enveloped all 5 of them. "Senior, take little Tian-Yin and retreat first," the goddess said to Old Man Wu. With a gentle force, she pushed Old Man Wu and little Tian-Yin to the back. Then, she used the 9 heavens divine thunder law to meet the 10th Divine Lord. The 9 heavens divine wind law circled around the body of the all heavens saintesses. As the goddess made her move, endless holy power surged. The 2 types of 9th-dimensional laws landed majestically in front of the 10th Divine Lord. The surrounding void was annihilated in large swathes. Then, Lin Tian also made his move. All the dimensional laws were displayed together, and together with the 3-dimensional world sword, he slashed out a sword aura that broke the sky and obliterated everything. The 10th Divine Lord didn't move, and his eyes were indifferent. With just a slight movement of his eyes, everything was obliterated. He happened to pass by this area and sensed that there were a few divine auras that suddenly dissipated, so he came here. He didn't expect to meet the goddess and all heaven's saintesses. These 2 were the wives of the celestial emperor, and the human king respectively, and they were extremely valuable. Moreover, what he didn't expect even more was that he actually met a human who had mastered reincarnation in this place. With a rumble, majestic holy power manifested outside his body. He didn't move, but there was a holy light pressing down on the three of them. Lin Tian's expression changed, and he immediately used all his holy power techniques to summon the heavenly river of reincarnation and the great waterfall of fortune to meet the attack. At the same time, the goddess and all heaven's saintesses attacked together, using all kinds of magical powers and techniques to attack the 10th Divine Lord. However, it was useless. When all the attacks landed in front of the 10th Divine Lord, they were all crushed by his aura in the blink of an eye. "All of you are very valuable," the 10th Divine Lord said indifferently. The 10th Divine Lord spoke. His voice was indifferent, as if he was a high and mighty emperor. Boundless holy light turned into giant handprints of holy power that grabbed at Lin Tian, the goddess, and the saints of all heavens, sealing off the space around the three of them and suppressing them. The three of them attacked, using their most powerful magical powers and secret techniques to meet the attack, but for a moment, they were all a little flustered. The 10th Divine Lord was simply too strong. Whoosh! 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 The sound of the air being torn apart rang out as the other 10 gods of the 10th Divine Lord moved. While the 10th Divine Lord was suppressing Lin Tian, the goddess, and the all-heaven saintesses, they all rushed toward Old Man Wu and Little Tianyin, their majestic holy power suppressing all directions. Old Man Wu was at the end of the 9th dimension, and he was the first to meet the attack. His aura was majestic, but the 9th dimensional experts of the Divine Spirit clan were all extremely powerful. Even though Old Man Wu was at the peak of the 9th dimension, he was no match for a dozen gods of this level. In the blink of an eye, he began to retreat. The boundless divine aura pressed down mightily, enveloping Old Man Wu and Little Tianyin in it, with undisguised cold murderous intent. Lin Tian tilted his head, and his left eye of destiny trembled slightly. He activated his teleportation ability, and instantly appeared in front of Old Man Wu and Little Tianyin. His right rinnegan trembled slightly, causing more than 10 ninth-dimensional deities to tremble and fall into the samsara purgatory illusion-killing technique. All of them immediately let out miserable shrieks without any symptoms. In the next instant, they all collapsed and died. Everyone's divine soul was crushed by the samsara purgatory illusion-killing technique. "Senior, are you all right?" Lin Tian asked Old Man Wu. I'm fine. Old Man Wu smiled. Just now, under the joint attack of the 10 gods, he had suffered some injuries, but they were not serious. Little Tianyin, who was wearing a purple dress, was like a little angel that had fallen to the mortal world. She held Lin Tian's hand and said, "Thank you, husband." She looked at Lin Tian. Her big eyes were very beautiful and clear, and there was no trace of fear or shock in them. Don't call me husband," Lin Tian corrected her. Little Tianyin was slightly startled. She tilted her head and said, "But husband is husband." Lin Tian wanted to cover his face and said, "Don't be like this. If you act like this, I'm simply..." Being called husband by such a small girl, he couldn't help but feel like a beast. "Actually, Tianyin is older than you. She's not a child," Little Tianyin said. "However, if husband doesn't mind, Tianyin will grow up to the size of a normal girl in another 10 years. At that time, husband can marry Tianyin." Lin Tian was embarrassed. Little Tianyin could tell what he was thinking at once. Boom! Saint energy surged. In front, the goddess and the all-heaven saintesses were constantly pushed back by the 10th Divine Lord's attack. "Take Senior Wu and Little Tianyin away! Don't be stubborn!" The goddess transmitted her voice again. "Little 10, listen to me. Let's go," the all-heaven saintesses also said. "After you leave, it will be easier for us to escape." Lin Tian was naturally unwilling. He looked at Old Man Wu and said, "Senior, please take Little Tianyin away first." Now, although his cultivation base was in the 9th dimensional realm, he definitely had the battle prowess of a supreme being. However, Old Man Wu only had the battle prowess of a ninth-dimensional realm expert. If he stayed in this place, he would not be of any use. Therefore, it was better to leave first. No one can leave, the 10th Divine Lord said indifferently. Lin Tian had killed more than 10 of his ninth-dimensional compatriots, but there was no change in his expression. There wasn't the slightest trace of anger or coldness. Inside his body, even more turbulent saint energy swept out. The aura of a god was turbulent, and it directly sealed off the surroundings. Furthermore, at the same time, even more saint energy surged out and pressed down on everyone in a mighty manner. Lin Tian protected Old Man Wu and little Tian Yin as he waved the three-dimensional sword in his hand to meet the attack. At the same time, his heart seemed to be incomparably heavy, and his brows furrowed. This 10th Divine Lord was really a little terrifying. Now, he was just standing in place and had such power with his mind. He was really too strong. Almost at the same time, in this boundless desert, the faint sound of a flute rang out. It was as gentle as warm water. Lin Tian suddenly trembled violently, and the aura he emitted began to rise steadily. In the blink of an eye, it was as if a volcano had erupted in his body, and the saint energy in his body continued to explode. Suddenly he was moved. He was surprised and happy, and he raised his head to look outside the desert. Outside the desert, Wu Yi, dressed in snow white, appeared silently. She walked over while playing the flute. At the same time, the saintess of all heavens was moved. Wu Yi! Wu Yi! The saintess was shocked when she saw Wu Yi. Her gaze fell on Wu Yi. She's... From the saintess of all heavens she learned many things about Lin Tian and the four-dimensional world, so she naturally knew about Wu Yi. At this time, her gaze fell on Wu Yi. She was first surprised, then delighted. This was her daughter-in-law. And she was very beautiful. So beautiful. Little Tianyin whispered, and her big sapphire-like eyes couldn't help but blink. She's almost comparable to Mother Xianyi. Wu Yi played the flute. Dressed in snow white, she looked like a fairy from the 9th heaven who had descended to the mortal world. Her appearance made the desert seem a little brighter. 3 days ago, she had reached the 8th dimensional realm in the 8th dimension. After settling down Ruoxian and the others, she stepped into the 9th dimension. Relying on the reincarnation origin that belonged to Lin Tian in her body, she sensed Lin Tian's location and came here at this time. The 10th Divine Lord tilted his head, and his gaze fell on Wu Yi. Without saying anything, a murderous aura swept toward Wu Yi. Chapter 2472. The holy light was cold and carried a murderous aura as it annihilated the surrounding space. Wu Yi played the flute calmly without any change in expression. In the next moment, a faint light flashed and Lin Tian appeared beside Wu Yi and smashed the holy light into pieces with a slap. Little Yi, you came just in time. He smiled. Wu Yi ascended to the 9th dimension and played the reincarnation tribulation crossing song. At this moment, his combat strength instantly soared by hundreds of times. Wu Yi's gaze was gentle, and she didn't say anything. She just smiled and nodded. The reincarnation tribulation crossing song resounded throughout the desert like a primordial sacred sound that cleansed the world. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at the 10th Divine Lord again with a slight smile. His left eye was destiny and his right eye was reincarnation. He took a step forward and disappeared from Wu Yi's side in an instant. The next moment, he appeared in front of the 10th Divine Lord and punched him. Boom! There was a muffled sound. This time, it was just a simple punch, but the fluctuations it caused were much stronger than before. The 10th Divine Lord's eyes narrowed slightly, and he made his first move. He raised his hand to meet Lin Tian's punch. In the blink of an eye, the two fists collided and the surrounding space was completely annihilated. With a muffled thud, the 10th Divine Lord was blasted away and retreated dozens of feet. This scene shocked the goddess, Old Man Wu, and little Tianyin. The goddess revealed a look of shock. Previously, she, the saintesses, and Lin Tian had joined forces to attack the 10th Divine Lord, but they had been completely unable to do anything to him. The 10th Divine Lord hadn't even moved from the beginning to the end. But now, Lin Tian had actually forced the 10th Divine Lord to take action and sent him flying with a single punch. Wu Yi is here. The Saintess smiled. She knew about Lin Tian and Wu Yi's situation very well. She created 2 techniques for Little Ten to target his reincarnation origin, the Reincarnation Forging Soul Technique and the Reincarnation Tribulation Crossing Song. Only she and Little Ten can use them. Now, Little Ten has refined the Reincarnation Forging Soul Technique and she played the Reincarnation Tribulation Crossing Song, making Little Ten hundreds of times stronger than before. The goddess was moved. She had never heard of such a thing before. This girl, Old Man Wu Wei, was also shocked. Creating 2 special techniques that targeted a person's life essence, and when used together, could increase a person's battle prowess by several hundred times. Even in the 9th dimension, only the celestial emperors and human kings could accomplish such a feat. Little Tian Yin's sapphire-like eyes sparkled. She stared at Wu Yi without blinking. Boom! In the distance, Saint Energy rumbled. The 10th Divine Lord steadied himself and looked at Lin Tian again. His eyes grew colder. Then, he looked at Wu Yi, who was playing the flute in the distance. To be able to force me back, you guys are not bad, he said coldly. At this moment, these words were not only directed at Lin Tian, but also at Lin Tian and Wu Yi. Because at his level of cultivation, he only needed a single glance to see that Lin Tian's sudden change was directly related to Wu Yi. Then, his gaze fell on Wu Yi. Divine shadows appeared and slashed at Wu Yi again. He could see that Lin Tian's sudden change was related to Wu Yi. In such a battle, the most effective way was to get rid of Wu Yi first. The divine shadows were densely packed. It was an amazing, remarkable power. They were very fast, and everything in their path was destroyed. Lin Tian knew what the 10th Divine Lord was planning. He waved his hand and created a sky full of reincarnation sword force. It was mixed with the light of reincarnation. It shattered all the divine shadows summoned by the 10th Divine Lord and dissipated in the blink of an eye. Then, in the next moment, he took the initiative to move. His eye of destiny trembled slightly, and he used his teleportation ability. He appeared in front of the 10th Divine Lord and punched him like before. Boom! The great void trembled and immediately shattered into pieces. With the combination of the reincarnation calamity overcoming song and the reincarnation forging spiritual art, his strength in all aspects increased by hundreds of times. Coupled with his fully open soul root and the 3-dimensional world in his body, he was now completely fearless of the 10th Divine Lord. The 10th Divine Lord frowned. His attack on Wu Yi was fruitless. He faced Lin Tian's punch without any carelessness, and raised his hand to meet it. Then I'll kill you first. Accompanied by a cold voice, divine spiritual light spread around him and wrapped around his right hand. He also punched out. The two collided with a boom and immediately shattered the great void nearby. The two of them were evenly matched. Lin Tian's eye of reincarnation trembled slightly. He used the reincarnation purgatory illusory killing technique and summoned a reincarnation blood sea at the same time. The reincarnation blood sea surged and seemed to be able to destroy everything. The 10th Divine Lord's spirit was pulled into the samsara purgatory illusion killing technique. Facing the endless evil spirits, his eyes were cold and indifferent. In an instant, he shattered the samsara purgatory illusion killing technique. Then, with a backhand slap, he faced the samsara blood sea that was pressing down from behind. With a whoosh, the reincarnation blood sea immediately collapsed. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. This 10th Divine Lord was indeed terrifying. Clang! In his hand, the 3-dimensional sword of heaven and earth condensed. His aura became even more terrifying as he slashed out with the sword. Following this sword, all kinds of dimensional laws met the attack together. The 10th Divine Lord was moved. This time, both his hands moved together and formed a special seal. He summoned a sacred ancient beast to meet the attack. The ancient beast was very strange. It was as if it was real. With a low roar, It rushed up and met the three-dimensional sword of heaven and earth, and the various dimensional laws. The two collided again. Crack! 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 The surrounding great void collapsed. For a time, wind and sand swept up and cracks appeared on the ground. Lin Tian did not stop. He met the 10th Divine Lord and moved again. He held the three-dimensional sword of heaven and earth and condensed all the dimensional laws that he had mastered into the sword of heaven and earth. He used it to perform the reincarnation sword technique that he had created. The reincarnation sword light that filled the sky intertwined like rain. Every sword light seemed to be able to easily crush ordinary supremes of heaven and earth. Such a scene caused the goddess's gaze to fluctuate. Such an attack was too shocking. She was far from being able to compare. The faint sound of the flute drifted through the desert. It didn't sound any different to her ears, but after learning everything from the All-Heaven Saintesses, she knew that it was the sound of the flute that had caused Lin Tian to undergo a metamorphosis. "This is great," she muttered to herself. Her gaze fell on Wu Yi. Her eyes flashed. Wu Yi was very quiet. He stood quietly in the distance. As the reincarnation tribulation crossing song floated out, his gaze was always on Lin Tian. Boom! 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 Frightening saint energy continued to spread, and the desert continued to be destroyed. Lin Tian fought the 10th Divine Lord of the lineage of gods alone. With the help of Wu Yi's reincarnation tribulation crossing song, although his cultivation was only in the 9th dimension, he did not fear the 10th Divine Lord at all. Now, with the help of the reincarnation tribulation crossing song and the three-dimensional heaven and earth, he completely had the ability to fight the 10th Divine Lord head-on. Hum! The completed reincarnation diagram rushed out from behind him. It was his king's territory, which he had not used for a long time. The aura of a god and saint immediately spread out, covering half of the sky here, and pressed down on the 10th Divine Lord. The 10th Divine Lord frowned. His hands continuously formed seals, and a destructive god's slaying sword condensed above his head. He slashed it down directly. The two collided, and the sky was filled with destructive light. However, they were still evenly matched. Lin Tian's heart sank. The 10th Divine Lord was indeed terrifying. Originally, with his current combat strength, he was able to kill an ordinary Divine Lord. However, now, with the help of Wu Yi's reincarnation tribulation crossing song and the three-dimensional heaven and earth in his body, he was still unable to gain the upper hand and could only fight to a draw. This really shocked him. However, while he was secretly shocked, the 10th Divine Lord opposite him was even more shocked. In the divine spirit lineage, apart from the 10 ancestral gods, he was the 10th strongest. He could wipe out an ordinary heaven and earth supreme with just a thought, but now, he was facing Lin Tian, a human cultivator who was only at the 9th dimensional level, and he had not been able to suppress him even after such a long time. It should be said that you are indeed worthy of being able to control reincarnation. Compared to ordinary mortals, there is a qualitative difference. Looking at Lin Tian, the 10th Divine Lord said coldly. You are not bad either. You are much stronger than an ordinary Divine Lord. Just like you said, there is a qualitative difference, Lin Tian said calmly. The two stood hundreds of feet apart, and in the next moment, they moved again and charged at each other. An intense battle broke out once again. Boom! 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 The two collided, and all kinds of divine light and holy splendor filled the air. All kinds of secret techniques collided, and blood splattered everywhere. There was Lin Tian's blood, and there was also the 10th Divine Lord's blood. In the blink of an eye, a full 3 days passed. Human, you are indeed very strong. Very strong, extremely strong. In terms of pure strength, you are even stronger than your celestial emperors and human kings. However, this is enough. On this day, the 10th Divine Lord opened his mouth, and his voice was cold. Inside his body, traces of strange light intertwined, showing 3 different colors. The 3 colors intertwined, and immediately emitted a kind of vigorous law fluctuation. With the appearance of this fluctuation, the other dimensional laws around Lin Tian, except for reincarnation, became chaotic. This caused Lin Tian's expression to change. This was the 10th dimensional law? At the same time, the goddesses and saintesses were also shocked. They all felt the terror of this law. It was too strong. Seal the heavens, the 10th Divine Lord said coldly, like an emperor who looked down on all things in the world. When these two words came out, the sky trembled violently. Lin Tianyi instantly felt his spirit become extremely cold. He could survive even without air, but at this moment, he inexplicably felt that the air was so thin that he was about to suffocate. The blood, meridians, and Saint Qi in his body all seemed to be covered by extremely cold ice and snow. At this moment, they began to gradually solidify, and his consciousness became unclear. This caused his spirit to tremble violently. He gritted his teeth, and his right eye, the Rinnegan, trembled. Boundless reincarnation light erupted from his body and shrouded his entire body. It forcefully pushed away the 10th Divine Lord's law aura, and then he swayed and retreated hundreds of feet away. The 10th Divine Lord's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a flash of surprise in them. As expected of reincarnation, you haven't cultivated it to full completion, and logically speaking, you shouldn't have any advantage, but… He didn't finish his words and attacked again. The three colors of holy splendor intertwined, and the law of fluctuations boiled. It was more turbulent than before, and at least 3 times stronger, and once again pressed toward Lin Tian. Chapter 2473. Lin Tian's expression changed as he faced the 10th Divine Lord's 10th dimensional nomological laws. He used all his strength to support his reincarnation and quickly dodged. The light of reincarnation was vast and mighty, and in the blink of an eye, it collided with the 10th dimensional nomological laws. Boom! With a loud bang, the light of reincarnation dissipated, and Lin Tian was blasted away. The blood and qi in his body tumbled like boiling water. However, at the same time, the 10th Divine Lord's 10th dimensional nomological laws were also blasted away. Very good, the 10th Divine Lord said coldly, and the heaven-sealing nomological laws became even stronger as he attacked Lin Tian again. Lin Tian took a deep breath, and his eyes shone brightly as he carefully observed and analyzed the 10th Divine Lord's 10th dimensional nomological laws. At the same time, he used the light of reincarnation to block the attack. Boom! 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 In the blink of an eye, another 2 hours had passed, and Lin Tianyi was blasted away again and again. Not bad! Not bad at all! With your 9th dimensional cultivation and incomplete reincarnation, you can actually block the heaven-sealing nomological laws for so long. Looking at Lin Tian, the 10th Divine Lord spoke, and his eyes became even colder. However, that's enough. Let's end this. As his words fell, the heaven-sealing nomological laws outside his body boiled and were directly pushed to the limit at this moment. The heavens and the earth instantly became deathly silent. Even time seemed to have stopped flowing. The boundless heaven-sealing nomological laws pressed down on Lin Tian mightily, and the air was frozen and annihilated along with wisps of it. Retreat! The expressions of the goddess and the all-heaven saintesses changed at the same time. They could naturally feel the terror of the 10th Divine Lord's attack. Old Man Wu's expression also changed. Little Lin, retreat! Little Tianyin crossed her fingers and held them together. Her sapphire-like eyes were clear as they fell on Lin Tian without blinking, and there was an inexplicable conviction in her eyes. In the distance, the faint sound of a flute was vast and mighty. Wu played the flute calmly, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. Her eyes were full of trust. Boom! At this moment, the boundless heaven-sealing nomological laws pressed down on Lin Tian. It was also at this moment that the light of reincarnation around Lin Tian's body dissipated, and his eyes intertwined with divine light of 3 colors gushed out. The dense fluctuations of laws intertwined and met the 10th Divine Lord's heaven-sealing nomological laws. When the two collided, there was no shocking rumbling sound, only an incomparably terrifying aura of destruction pervading the air and dissipating from each other. The Divine Lord's expression, for the first time. Lin Tian's, heaven-sealing nomological laws. Heaven-sealing nomological laws. At the same time, the expressions of the goddess, the all-heaven saintess, and old man Wu Wei also changed greatly, none of them able to say a word. Tian Yin's fourth laws heaven Dao's heavens. The sound of the flute reverberated throughout the desert. Wu Yi was still as calm as ever, without a trace of emotion. Seal the heavens, seal everything, condense everything. Now that he had unsealed all the seals on his soul root, his understanding of all things in the world was too strong. Apart from reincarnation, as long as he wanted to, he could quickly comprehend the essence of other things and control them. He watched as the 10th Divine Lord used the 10th dimensional heaven-sealing nomological laws. After 2 hours, he finally mastered them. At first, the heaven-sealing nomological laws aura outside his body seemed a little weak, but it soon grew stronger. Impossible! The 10th Divine Lord's voice was low and filled with disbelief. The 10-dimensional laws of the 10 divine regions were only mastered by the ancestral gods and their top 10 divine sovereigns. Each of them had spent more than 100,000 years to master the laws of the 10 divine regions, and it was hard to describe how much effort they had put in during that time. But now, a 9th-dimensional realm human from the lower realm had actually mastered the laws of the 10 divine regions in just 2 hours. It was hard for him to accept. He couldn't accept it. Boom! Outside his body, the 10th-dimensional heaven-sealing nomological laws boiled and surged violently, becoming even more terrifying and intimidating than before. The sky lost its color, completely suppressed by the heaven-sealing nomological laws. Lin Tian was fearless. With the 3-dimensional world as his support, he activated the reincarnation tempering mind technique. Together with Wu Yi's reincarnation tribulation crossing song, he also used the heaven-sealing nomological laws to meet his opponent head-on. Boom! 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 The same 10th-dimensional heaven-sealing nomological laws continued to collide. The two were once again evenly matched, and neither could gain any advantage. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. After 3 days, both of their auras had weakened, and their saint powers were almost exhausted. The 10th Divine Lord's eyes darkened. He paused for a moment, then immediately retreated. "Young human, you're very good. I'll remember you." After saying this, he left into the distance. Now, in the battle with Lin Tianyi, he had used his strongest trump card, the heaven-sealing nomological laws, but Lin Tian had secretly learned it. Now that he was evenly matched with Lin Tian, it was still impossible for him to suppress Lin Tian if the battle continued. However, although he could not suppress Lin Tian, his saint powers were constantly being depleted. Once his saint powers were truly exhausted, Lin Tian's side would still have supreme existences like the goddess and the saintess of all heavens. At that time, if the two of them attacked together, he would be killed right there and then. Based on this situation, leaving now was the best choice. "You can't leave," Lin Tian spoke. The 10th dimensional heaven-sealing nomological laws condensed into the heaven-sealing divine sword, blocking his opponent's path of retreat. In the next moment, strands of saint runes of order intertwined outside his body. With a boom, an extremely terrifying aura spread out from his body, exuding an incomparably rich divine aura, suppressing the heavenly force here. The 10th Divine Lord's expression changed again. "You!" After controlling the heaven-sealing nomological laws, Lin Tian actually exuded a divine aura at this moment. Moreover, it was his own divine aura, and it was even stronger than his own. "This is—" In the distance, old man Wu Wei was also shocked to see Lin Tian exuding a divine aura at this time, and his eyes were full of shock. The goddess and the saintess of all heavens understood. "It's that sex order divine ability. In the past few days, during the course of the battle, he has been continuously using it?" The goddess was surprised, shocked, and pleasantly surprised. "I have to say, Little Ten has absolute talent in the path of battle. He is worthy of the Heavenly Emperor's bloodline." The saintess of all heaven smiled. Boom! The divine aura surged. Outside Lin Tian's body, saint runes of order intertwined. It was as if a divine volcano had erupted at this time, and the aura was extremely terrifying. For the first time, the 10th Divine Lord revealed a look of horror. His expression changed completely, and he fled again with extreme speed. At this time, Lin Tian made him feel the fear of death for the first time. With a whoosh, his speed was extremely fast, and he rushed far away in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian did not pursue. Samsara saw through everything. He raised his right hand slightly, and then gently blasted out. In these 6 days, he had secretly refined and accumulated all the killing nomological laws that the 10th Divine Lord had blasted at him with order divine ability, and at this time, he exploded. Absolute counterattack. Boom! The firmament roared, and the world trembled. The brilliant fist light drowned out everything. There was no scream. With a poof, the 10th Divine Lord directly collapsed. His physical body turned to ashes, and his spirit body also collapsed. His body and spirit were destroyed. In an instant, the place became quiet. This is really... Old man Wei was stunned. The 10th Divine Lord of the Divine Spirit lineage was killed by Lin Tian just like that. The Samsara Tribulation Crossing song disappeared, and Wu Yi stopped playing the flute. Lin Tian's aura suddenly weakened like the tide. Outside his body, the order divine runes disappeared, and in a flash, he appeared beside Wu Yi. Where are Ruo Xian and the others? Aren't they with you? She asked Wu Yi with a smile. No, Wu Yi said softly. She felt that it was better for Ruo Xian and the others to be in the 8th dimension now. Lin Tian nodded and said a few words to Wu Yi. Then, he pulled Wu Yi to the Divine Lady and the others. Wu Yi, long time no see. You're still so beautiful. The All Heaven's Divine Lady said with a smile. Masteress. Wu Yi opened her mouth. Her words were as short as usual. The All Heaven's Divine Lady's appearance was the same as Qin Xian's when she projected her soul in the 10th dimension, so she naturally recognized her. And this was Lin Tian's masteress, so she naturally called her masteress. With a swoosh, the Divine Lady flashed over and took the initiative to take Wu Yi's hand. Her eyes were filled with joy. Wu Yi! Wu Yi's eyes moved slightly. Lin Tian had once shown her the Divine Lady's appearance, so she naturally still remembered. Seeing the Divine Lady now, she was a little surprised. My mother, Lin Tian said from the side. As for Wu Yi, he didn't introduce her to the Divine Lady, because the Divine Lady had already learned everything from the All Heaven's Divine Ladies. Wu Yi opened her mouth, paused for a moment, and said, Mother. Her voice was soft. She wasn't good at such a scene. Yes. Good. Good girl. The Divine Lady held Wu Yi's hand. Not only was this daughter-in-law beautiful, but her strength was also impeccable. No one could stop her from helping Lin Tian. Naturally, she was very happy. Thank goodness you came. Otherwise, we might have all died here today. She wasn't being polite. She was telling the truth. If Wu Yi hadn't arrived today and played the Reincarnation Tribulation Crossing song for Lin Tian, no one here would be able to resist the strength of the 10th Divine Lord. They would all be suppressed. Truly amazing! Old man Wei sighed. This ancient existence didn't have a hierarchy in his heart, and he never looked down on the creatures of the lower dimensions. However, he knew that the creatures of the lower dimensions were qualitatively different from those of the upper dimensions. However, Wu Yi, who was born in the 4th dimension, shocked him. It was difficult to find a person like her in the 9th dimension. Little Tian Yin's gaze fell on Wu Yi. There was a little light in her eyes. Sister Wu Yi, you're so beautiful. Strictly speaking, she was actually older than Wu Yi. However, she, who had yet to grow up, was only 6 years old at the end of the day. Naturally, she could not call Wu Yi younger sister. That would be rude on the surface. Wu Yi's gaze fell on little Tian Yin. Her gaze was very gentle. She said softly, Thank you. You're also very beautiful. Little Tian Yin had a very sweet smile on her face. Then, she looked at Lin Tian. She was waiting for Lin Tian to introduce her to Wu Yi. Lin Tian naturally understood her gaze. He instantly felt a headache. How was he going to tell Wu Yi about this? Chapter 2474. Facing little Tianing's gaze, Lin Tian looked at Wu Yi. He opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. He was rather submissive, and even seemed to be trembling with fear. He used more than 10 breaths to introduce Yao Tianyin to Wu Yi and then added, "This has nothing to do with me. I definitely don't have such thoughts. Really? You have to believe me." Although Tianyin wasn't really 6 years old, she still looked like a 6-year-old, so he really couldn't accept it. I don't think I've seen you so afraid of anyone before," the Saintess of the All Heavens said with a teasing tone. Lin Tian. Wu Yi's expression didn't change at all. She looked at Lin Tian, then at the Saintess, and then at little Tianyin. "Since Mother has agreed to this before, there's nothing to object to," she said softly. "However, Tianyin can only marry me when she grows up." Lin Tianwei was stunned. "Huh! She approved so easily? Even he didn't approve of it." Little Tianyin was very happy. Just like how she held Lin Tian, she held Wu Yi's hand with both hands. "Thank you, big sister." She held Wu Yi's hand with a very obedient and sweet smile. The Saintess looked at Wu Yi and liked her even more. Not only was she beautiful and talented, but she was also so reasonable. Where could she find a daughter-in-law like this? Elder Wu Wei also smiled. Little Tianin's parents had passed away a long time ago. She had a very good relationship with the Saintess since she was young, so he naturally hoped that little Tianin could marry Lin Tian. Now Wu Yi agreed and didn't object, so the elder couldn't help but feel grateful. Lin Tian was dumbfounded. "I already said that Wu Yi wouldn't object. Since Wu Yi has agreed, the others won't object." The Saintess of the All Heavens looked at him and smiled. She knew that Jiyu and the others were all led by Wu Yi, so Wu Yi's decision was everyone's decision. Little Tianyin held Wu Yi's hand and looked at Lin Tian. Her big eyes were very clear. Lin Tian wanted to cover his face. He didn't even dare to look at little Tianyin right now. He would feel like a beast. However, this marriage was set by the goddess, after all, so the celestial emperor had no objections. Moreover, little Tianyin's parents had both passed away, and she had an extremely good relationship with his mother since she was young. If he insisted on refusing, it was likely that many people would be hurt. In the end, he coughed dryly and paused for a moment. He changed the topic so that he wouldn't be embarrassed. He said, "This is a special terrain that was chosen for Tianyin in the past. I used the dragon burial scripture and the laws of the earth to explore it before. There is very rich saint energy of heaven and earth below. It will be of great use to anyone below the supreme level of heaven and earth. I engraved it and guided it up so that we can cultivate together." His words were directed at himself, Wu Yi, Tianyin, and Old Man Wu Wei. After all, only the 4 of them were below sky and earth supreme in this place. The goddess and saintess of all heavens had already become sky and earth supreme. As for the special terrain of this place, because little Tianyin had already recovered, there was no need to continue preserving it. Naturally, it was best to use it rationally. "I don't need it. To step into the supreme level of heaven and earth, what is needed is comprehension. Psionic Tao force is already ineffective," Old Man Wu Wei said. "Oh, that's true." Lin Tian nodded. At this moment, he also remembered this point. Then, he looked at Wu Yi and little Tianyin and asked them to step forward. He directly used the dragon burial scripture and the laws of the earth to guide the special terrain of this place. He broke open some special lay points, and in the blink of an eye, a large amount of heaven and earth psionic Tao force was activated. This level of heaven and earth psionic Tao force was very shocking. Even for him, who was in the early 9th dimensional realm, it had a good effect. For Wu Yi, who had just reached the 8th dimensional realm, and Tianyin, who had yet to truly embark on the path of cultivation, the effect was even greater. Outside Wu Yi's body, his essence, qi, and spirit were rapidly strengthened. In the blink of an eye, he had reached the middle 8th dimensional realm from the early 8th dimensional realm. Little Tian Yin's cultivation speed was even faster. After all, she had just embarked on the path of cultivation, and in the blink of an eye, she had reached the level of flying. Although little Tian Yin looked like she was only 6 years old, in fact, she was not. In addition, she was a creature of the 9th dimensional realm, and the power of her bloodline was very shocking. At her current stage, she could naturally embark on the path of cultivation without any influence. As for the ancient scriptures on the path of cultivation, little Tian Yin naturally did not lack them. When she was young, she had received the true teachings of the goddess. Buzz! Holy light lingered here. Lin Tian guided the psionic Tao force underground and enveloped himself, Wu Yi, and little Tian Yin. The goddess, the saintess of all heavens, and old man Wu Wei guarded the three of them. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. All the primitive psionic energy in the terrain here was drawn out and refined. In a month, Wu Yi stepped into the creation realm from the 8th dimensional realm. And because he had mastered many dimensional laws, when he stepped into the primordial realm and the creation realm, he attracted the thunder punishment of the great path in this place. In order to prevent Wu Yi's cultivation from being disturbed, the goddess who was guarding him forcibly erased it. Little Tian Yin had reached the Saint King realm and was much stronger. Most importantly, after reaching the Immortal Ascension realm, she did not attract the thunder punishment of the Immortal Ascension realm at all. After her cultivation reached the Saint King realm, even if she did not stabilize it, her Tao foundation was still very strong. Needless to say, this was somewhat shocking. Even the goddess and saintess, the two supremes of heaven and earth, could not help but be moved. Under normal circumstances, when a cultivator stepped into the transcending immortal realm, he would trigger the transcending immortal tribulation, but little Tian Yin did not. At the same time, after a cultivator had reached a certain level of cultivation, they would need to spend time to stabilize their Tao foundation. This was especially so when their cultivation level was increased with the help of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. They would need to spend more time to temper their Tao foundation to prevent their cultivation level from being unstable. If their Tao foundation was not strong enough, it would create flaws in their later cultivation and affect their achievements on the path of cultivation. However, since little Tian Yin did not go through the Immortal Ascension tribulation, she did not need to stabilize her Tao foundation. Naturally, her cultivation level and Tao foundation were very strong. It felt like no matter what kind of cultivation one did not need to stabilize their Tao foundation. No matter what level one cultivated, the accumulated cultivation level was very strong and unshakable. This was really shocking. It should be related to the special energy that invaded her body. Lin Tian thought for a moment and said, although that energy was wiped out by me using the reincarnation origin, a lot of it had entered her life origin. When it was eroding her origin, it also caused some changes in her origin, causing her to undergo such changes. He said, well, no matter what, this is a blessing in disguise. It's a good thing. It seemed that even if Tian Yin mastered the dimensional laws, she would not attract a heavenly tribulation. Even if she stepped into the tribulation realm, there would not be a heavenly tribulation. In addition, no matter how she cultivated, her cultivation level and Tao foundation were incomparably strong. With all these factors combined, it could be said that Tian Yin's cultivation path had become smooth sailing. Husband, you know so much. Little Tian Yin blinked and smiled. Lin Tian was embarrassed. When he heard the word husband, he wanted to cover his face on the spot. He coughed dryly and examined his changes again. In a month's time, he had reached the mid-9th dimension. The saint energy in his body was undoubtedly more majestic, and his battle strength was more powerful. What should we do next? He asked the goddess and saintess of all heavens. What should we do? The goddess paused and said, the lineage of gods also has several strongholds in the 9th dimension, but... Boom! Suddenly, a violent tremor occurred, and the entire ninth dimension shook violently. Vaguely, an extremely terrifying dragon roar sounded from the eastern region of this world. Even the sky was trembling. At that moment, the group was all moved. It was the first time they had heard such a loud dragon roar. Moreover, the entire ninth dimension was trembling slightly. The ancestral bloodline of gods? Lin Tian was moved. The world had world-class ancestral bloodlines, and heaven and earth naturally also had heaven and earth ancestral bloodlines. They were the source of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. At this moment, the ninth dimension shook violently and was accompanied by such a shocking dragon roar. Such a thought came to his mind in an instant. The ancestral bloodline of gods in the ninth dimension was acting strangely at this time? Had it manifested in the eastern region of this world? Let's go and have a look. The goddess frowned. At this moment, she had a bad feeling. Under normal circumstances, the ancestral bloodline of gods would never act strangely. Lin Tian nodded. At that moment, the group left the place, tore open the void door, and headed toward the eastern region. After about a day, the group arrived at the eastern region. As far as the eye could see, the ground in front of them had collapsed, and an extremely huge dragon head was revealed. It was completely condensed from pure spiritual energy, and it was lifelike. There were dense divine runes intertwined around it, restricting its movement. These divine runes turned into countless chains, and 3 figures were controlling them, trying their best to pull the dragon head out. At the same time, there were dozens of other figures around it, and all of them had the aura of the lineage of gods intertwined. The 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord, and the 7th Divine Lord! The goddess was moved. Her gaze fell on the 3 figures controlling the countless chains to suppress the sacred spirit dragon's head. Lin Tian's gaze flickered. Ever since he had arrived, his gaze had naturally landed on the 3 of them. He could tell that the 3 of them were not ordinary. Each of them was stronger than the other. Even the weakest among them was far stronger than the 10th Divine Lord. Moreover, he could also see that the dragon head was indeed a part of the ancestral bloodline of gods. His eyes narrowed, and he acted immediately. 9 types of ninth dimension laws manifested together, and directly slashed toward the 3 figures. Although the ancestral bloodline of gods was far less important than the dimensional heart, it was still a very important component of a world. The 3 divine lords of the lineage of gods were restraining the ancestral bloodline of gods in such a way. They obviously had bad intentions. Almost as soon as he acted, the goddess and saintess of all heavens also acted together. The goddess activated the 9 heavens divine thunder law, and the saintess activated the 9 heavens divine wind law. They cooperated with each other, and the wind and thunder law burst toward the 3 figures. Goddess! Saintess of all heavens! The 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord, and the 7th Divine Lord looked at the goddess and saintess of all heavens coldly. Chapter 2475. Among the dozens of figures, 7 of them were at the level of heaven and earth supreme, ordinary divine lords of the divine spirit lineage. The others were all powerful existences at the end of the 9th dimension. With the 7 heaven and earth supreme in the lead, the dozens of people attacked together, filling the sky with divine light. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as his gaze fell on the 7 heaven and earth supreme. These 7 divine spirits were not much weaker than the 10th divine lord he had encountered before. The goddess and the saintesses of all heavens naturally also noticed this. For a moment, both of them could not help but be moved. Not to mention the 9th, 8th, and 7th divine lords, just these 7 divine lords alone were stronger than them. Boom! The majestic aura of the divine spirits was vast and mighty, immediately crushing all the dimensional laws that the 3 of them had activated. We didn't look for you, but you delivered yourselves to us. Very good, very good. The 9th, 8th, and 7th divine lords were restraining the 9th dimension ancestral vein. Looking at the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens, he ordered the others. Suppress the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens. Kill the rest. The three of them did not know about Lin Tian's identity, and the fact that Lin Tian controlled reincarnation. They only thought of Lin Tian as an ordinary human cultivator. The 7 divine spirits nodded. One of them closed in on Lin Tian, while the other 6 closed in on the goddess and the saintesses of all heavens. The other 19-dimensional divine spirits charged toward Wu Yi, Yao Tianyin, and Elder Wu Wei. Wu Yi. Lin Tian's back was facing Wu Yi. He immediately activated the reincarnation forging mind technique, and his combat strength instantly increased by 20 times. Wu Yi naturally understood what he meant. Thousand snow floated out, and the reincarnation tribulation crossing song was played immediately, reverberating in all directions. The faint sound of the flute did not have any effect on the others, but to Lin Tian, it was undoubtedly the sound of the heavens. With a boom, it was as if a saint energy volcano had erupted in his body. His essence, qi, and spirit instantly rose at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, his essence, qi, spirit, and other aspects increased by hundreds of times. In an instant, the surrounding void began to distort. Such a scene shocked the ordinary Sir Gods who were closing in. The other 6 ordinary Sir Gods and the group of gods were shocked as well. At this moment, Lin Tian's aura actually underwent such a great change. It was also at this moment that Lin Tian made his move. The 3-dimensional sword of heaven and earth condensed, and combined with the 9 heavens' divine thunder law, he swung his sword. With an ear-piercing clang, the boundless sword qi transformed into a rain of sword qi, sweeping out in a mighty manner. The ordinary divine monarchs and the other 6 ordinary divine monarchs were immediately sent flying. At the same time, the other dozens of ordinary 9th-dimensional realm deities also met with calamity. All of them were annihilated by the 3-dimensional sword. The 7 ordinary Sir Gods steadied themselves and their expressions changed. At the same time, the 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord and the 7th Divine Lord narrowed their eyes. "What are you guys doing?" Lin Tian looked at the 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord and the 7th Divine Lord and said coldly. His left and right eyes changed at the same time. 9 black moons intertwined and endless reincarnation patterns appeared. At this moment, the Eye of Destiny and the Eye of Reincarnation opened. This scene shocked the 7 ordinary Sir Gods and the 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord and the 7th Divine Lord who were suppressing the 9th dimensional ancestral bloodline. "Human!" The 7th Divine Lord's eyes narrowed. Lin Tian had actually mastered the legendary reincarnation. That was a power that even the 10 ancestral gods of their bloodline could not control. "Take him down!" the 8th Divine Lord ordered. As soon as the order was given, he, the 9th Divine Lord and the 7th Divine Lord could not move for the time being. The other 7 divine monarchs acted immediately. None of them showed any mercy. They all used their majestic arts to suppress Lin Tian. At this moment, they even temporarily ignored the goddesses and saintesses of all heavens. After all, reincarnation was extremely important. Although they did not believe that Lin Tian could control it to the level of greater mastery, and it was meaningless if he did not control it to the level of greater mastery. Nevertheless, they still prepared to suppress Lin Tian first. Boom! The 7 Sir Gods attacked together. For a moment, the majestic power was vast and mighty, surging like a vast ocean. Lin Tian snorted. The 3-dimensional sword of heaven and earth in his hand vibrated. At the same time, the sky-ceiling Dharma was intertwined. Clang! He slashed down with the sword. Accompanied by the sharp sound of the sword, it suppressed and froze everything. Puff, 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 puff! 7 plumes of blood mist exploded at once. The 7 ordinary Sir Gods were cut into pieces at the same time. Previously, when his cultivation was still in the early 9th dimension, with the help of the Reincarnation Tribulation Transcendence Song, the Reincarnation Forging Mind Technique, and the 3-dimensional heaven and earth, he had killed the 10th Divine Lord of this bloodline. Now, his cultivation had risen from the early 9th dimension to the middle 9th dimension. With the help of the Reincarnation Tribulation Transcendence Song, the Reincarnation Forging Mind Technique, and the 3-dimensional heaven and earth, It was naturally easier to deal with these 7 gods who were slightly weaker than the 10th Divine Lord. He could easily suppress them. Sky-sealing Dharma? The 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord, and the 7th Divine Lord were shocked at the same time. They looked at Lin Tian with even more shock. How do you know the sky-sealing Dharma? I learned it from your 10th Divine Lord. Lin Tian did not try to hide it. Hearing his words, the 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord, and the 7th Divine Lord's eyes all froze. Where is the 10th Divine Lord? The 7th Divine Lord asked. His voice was cold, and at the same time, he had an ominous premonition. The 10th Divine Lord obviously could not have taught a human from the lower domain the sky-sealing Dharma. So, how did Lin Tian learn it? Obviously, he had learned it by force. If that was the case, the 10th Divine Lord was obviously doomed. However, even though he had guessed this, he could not help but ask. Next to him, the 9th Divine Lord and the 8th Divine Lord's eyes also became cold. They stared at Lin Tian like ghosts. Take a guess, Lin Tianling said coldly. The sword of heaven and earth in his hand vibrated, and he swung it toward the 3 of them. The sharp sword light swept across all directions, carrying the power of the sky-sealing Dharma. Its aura was frightening, and in the blink of an eye, it was right in front of the 3 of them. The 9th Divine Lord's eyes were cold, and the cold light in his eyes intertwined. He directly shattered the sword light of heaven and earth that Lin Tian had slashed out. This made Lin Tian's heart tremble slightly. He had not shown much mercy in this sword, but his opponent had shattered it with just a look. He was much stronger than the 10th Divine Lord. Gurgle gurgle. The sound of flesh and blood squirming echoed. At this time, the other 7 ordinary Divine Lords reformed their physical bodies. Lin Tian glanced at the 9th Divine Lord, the 8th Divine Lord, and the 7th Divine Lord, and his gaze fell on the 7 of them. I'll send you on your way first, he said coldly. As he finished speaking, the 3-dimensional power of heaven and earth boiled. The sky-sealing Dharma boiled, and the reincarnation diagram appeared with a flash. At this time, his combat power was directly pushed to the limit by him. Rumble! The space suddenly trembled violently. The boundless void was distorted and shattered into pieces. The expressions of the 7 ordinary Divine Lords immediately changed. At this moment, they all felt their scalps go numb. The attack that Lin Tian had used at this time was really too frightening. Activate the 7 elements formation! One of them shouted. Immediately, the 7 of them gathered together and took different positions. In the blink of an eye, they set up a special formation. However, at this time, Lin Tian looked at the 7 of them. His reincarnation eyes moved slightly, and the reincarnation purgatory illusion killing technique was used silently. The 7 of them wanted to activate some kind of joint attack technique to increase their offensive power. He obviously would not give them such a chance. Facing his reincarnation eyes, the 7 of them immediately trembled and fell into the reincarnation illusion killing technique in an instant. In the eyes of others, there was nothing around them. However, in the eyes of the 7 of them, they had fallen into a terrifying purgatory. Endless ghosts and resentful spirits pounced on them and crazily tore at their bodies and divine souls. At this time, Lin Tian's reincarnation sword light and the reincarnation diagram fell in front of the 7 of them and pressed down mercilessly. The 7 blood mists exploded once again. This time, the 7 of them were left with only their divine souls. They even lost the ability to reform their physical bodies for a short time. Die, Lin Tian said. His eyes moved slightly, and the waterfall of fortune and the reincarnation blood sea appeared at the same time and pressed down together. There were 7 sizzling sounds. Before the 7 of them could react, their divine souls were annihilated. The goddesses and saintesses were not surprised by this scene. After all, the 7 of them were slightly weaker than the 10th Divine Lord. However, Lin Tian was now much stronger than when he killed the 10th Divine Lord. Therefore, it was normal for the current Lin Tian to kill the 7 of them so easily with Wu Yi's help. The 9th, 8th, and 7th Divine Lord's eyes grew even colder. Human! The ninth Divine Lord's gaze fell on Lin Tian. His gaze was like a blade of death. Several 19-dimensional compatriots, and 7 ordinary Divine Lords at the heaven and earth sovereign level had been killed by Lin Tian just like that. He had even guessed that the 10th Divine Lord had also died at Lin Tian's hands. "Can you hold on?" the man asked the 8th and 7th Divine Lords. The 8th and 7th Divine Lords did not speak. They only nodded. The 9th Divine Lord did not say anything else. He looked at Lin Tian and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the next moment, his figure appeared in front of Lin Tian and pressed down with his palm. With a crack, the surrounding space was suddenly annihilated. A boundless divine aura silently pressed down on Lin Tian. The goddesses and saintesses could not help but be shocked by this scene. The 9th Divine Lord was too fast. He was so fast that even heaven and earth sovereigns like them could not see his movements clearly. Lin Tian was also shocked by his opponent's speed. However, his expression did not change. As the 9th Divine Lord's giant palm pressed down on him, his reincarnation eye moved slightly and finally caught the trajectory of his opponent's attack. He tilted his head slightly to avoid it. Then, without any unnecessary movements, he waved the sword of heaven and earth in his hand and attacked with the heaven-sealing rule of law. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. As he swung his sword, 9 rays of sword light appeared and pressed down on his opponent from 9 different directions. The 9 swords of reincarnation, great remarkable power. The 9th Divine Lord's gaze moved slightly and fell unblinkingly on Lin Tian's right eye. Is this the legendary reincarnation eye? It lives up to its name! You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.